I think this is the way it works, though, dude. No one's excited to like go waste, a weekend of theirs voting or, God forbid, like canvassing or knocking on doors. It's not something like for better or worse, policy is what matters, right? But like policy is downstream of everything else, right? You don't win with good policy. You win by loudly promoting the effects of your good policy. You win by like owning the libs on twitter.com. Like it's obvious that like the marginal policy wonk is not what delivered like a 2016 or a 2024 win. What delivered like a marginal 2024 or 2016 win is like a person on twitter.com who like posted, like, I mean, this is like a funny thing to say, but I really wholeheartedly believe this, that like Ben Shapiro owning the libs compilation number 54, like, is more important than like the modal, like the marginal guy at like a think tank, right?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I'm not sure how much of it happens on X specifically at this point. I do think X is like hopefully still influential and sort of.
I think X is like upstream of the stuff that actually matters. Like you meet really big Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers, and all of them are on Twitter. Some of them do post on Twitter, but a lot of them don't. Like we met recently these super famous models that are like some of the most famous, like these European guys.
They're men, by the way. We're not flexing women at you. They're male.
Yeah, they're men, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. I was promised before I came on this show that a woman has never been on this podcast, so I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's
we never had a woman on. Actually, true. Yeah. We keep inviting them, and they don't want to. No, I'm joking. We obviously haven't invited any of them on.
I have a few relatives who fairly regularly hit me up every time a new episode comes out and say, like, I noticed there was no women on this one. Also,
welcome back.
Welcome
back. Episode of the Positively Deniable Experience with my beautiful, great-looking, very heterosexual co-host Lucas. Sponsored by
and my
Polymarket.
Beautiful 21-year-old co-host.
Dude, every time Lucas like alleges my age, it goes down like a few.
No.
Very
I
soon.
21 last time too. I was thinking about saying 19 this time, but that's getting
very soon he's gonna have to start being more careful about this because he's gonna start getting really close to implying that I'm a minor.
This is my 16-year-old co-host. There's a reason that he's not on camera, by the way. I know I've gotten a lot of questions about why Sayla's not on camera, and we'll be able to show him in another few years, but right now it's just not looking.
Brought to you by Zcash, Polymarket, Citizen X, and Passage Press, our wonderful sponsors. We have an amazing guest for you guys today, Jeremy Kauffman of Twitter notoriety, New Hampshire Libertarian Party provocateur, and, as we'll get into, former rugger of Lucas at age 15. No, we forgive any cryptocurrency entrepreneurship related exploits. For a great episode.
We're the biggest non-scammers out there, like especially in crypto. Like we delivered. We had applications.
Here, I should say we should cut this because now we're on air. And we were having a little back conversation talk, and the first thing I said to Jeremy, he was saying, you guys are really unprofessional. You were late to the recording. Which, like, fair play. I was indeed late, actually. But then I said, but you, on the other hand, you rugged the living shit out of me on this LBRY Coin 10 years ago.
Well, I like to establish rapport with any podcast host by just being really insulting to them. It's like a great way. It's like
that's how you show respect in their culture.
Yeah. How to make friends and influence people or whatever. It's just be really mean to them. But the federal government rugged LBRY. I mean, we were.
Oh my God! This is the whole. Okay, man. All right, listen. I'm willing to hear you out.
You don't get it, bro. It wasn't me. It was the feds, man. They made
Obama. It was Obama.
Wait, hold on. This is not a made up story. We were at like 50 million active users with Odysee. We had a big thing going. We got blown up by the SEC. That's why the whole.
I think this is actually kind of true. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were never trying to tell people they were going to get rich with LBRY Coin or whatever.
This is the classic. This is like the classic one. Like, we just sold the coin, man. I never told you were gonna make money with it. Which is, it's like super true. No, hold on. It is super true, but it is just like the most uncompelling argument ever.
I don't know, what authority, what source of record I could appeal to here. You can ask your favorite.
The Council of
I support this
Podcasters has
argument
deemed you a
completely.
scammer.
I wholeheartedly support this argument that, like, if you are ever in, quote unquote, the casino in any way possible, like, that's on you, man. You know what I mean? Like, I very much wholeheartedly support this argument. That said,
I got out with no money. I spent almost 10 years of my life working on this.
yeah, this is what always happens. Is like, you also don't make any money, and then people hate you for it as well. And
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
the people who hate you for it actually lost less money on it than you did. Like,
I do
the
believe
coin.
that, like, I was a true believer. Okay, like I was.
Yes.
So
That's what I was gonna say. Is the generation of crypto projects that you were part of? None of those founders made any money. Like, all of those people were 100% true believers. They were all like, yeah, like, my tokens will vest in 18 years because that's like when, like, I'm fine locking my shit up for 18 years because I know that this is going to keep going. And like, all of them wound up getting, they got like association rugged, where it's like some of their friends or some people around them who managed to like get a hold of a lot of supply benefited more financially than the founders did.
yes, it's like the advisor that sniped 2% allocation for like introducing you to a VC made more money on this.
yeah, like similar stuff happened here.
He knows exactly. There's someone he's thinking about right now.
Like, the library blockchain is still live. It's legally in the clear. It's still actually a good idea. So maybe one of your audience members wants to pick it up and run with it, because like the core idea, I'm actually shocked that there's still not a better like business here. You guys are like technical guys. You probably people who use like BitTorrent and stuff like this, and like the idea that you can have a blockchain that maps to content hashes, which is like the entire idea. Like, there's a little bit more to it than that, but the entire idea is very simple. Use a public blockchain, map metadata to content hashes. Like in BitTorrent, like everyone's still using like Pirate Bay, or you're on like a private tracker, but that's of course not public. There's still a huge business here, and it's like shocking to me that someone hasn't built it yet.
It's just, dude, memory is super expensive, man. I think, I mean, I'm sure you would know more about this than I would, but I feel like the coordination costs for all the memory are incredibly, incredibly expensive, no?
I don't know that it requires memory. There is a tricky problem of distribution. Any public blockchain requires some token to write to, like it can't be free. And I do think that is, one of the hurdles. Crypto hasn't solved this. Are we doing crypto, man? I haven't done like a crypto podcast in years, honestly. Like I know.
I was like, do we really?
We're
like,
really
does
not
anyone
that
in our
much of a
audience even
crypto
know about
project.
this shit anymore? We're kind of just like,
we talk a lot less about crypto, to be honest. So don't expect that we will continue to talk about crypto. But it was just funny. Like we were looking you up, and I was like, no, dude, it's super cool. He like does all this libertarian stuff and whatnot. And then Lucas looks you up, and he's like, holy shit, this guy rugged me when I was 16.
it's okay. I forgive you. Listen, everyone rugged me in a long enough time scale, right?
Yeah, of all the rugs that have happened, like a financial rug is actually really not that bad, man.
Yeah. But I will say, I pull up the very first thing that I do whenever we have a guest on now is I ask Grok, this is their profile, what things should we talk about with this guy? And it really, like, I don't know if I've ever gotten such an awesome response as I got for you, Jeremy. The number one is the Libertarian Party meltdown and disaffiliation, parentheses, extremely timely. Then it says the biggest current hook. After his speech at the Libertarian National Convention, where he called attendees loser apes and freaks and pushed hard against the National Party, the Libertarian National Committee voted 15-2 to disaffiliate from this particular party. And And then it has some good angles to approach this from, but it's like, I assume you probably have better angles than whatever Grok can provide me with this.
Well, it's funny because like all the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire stuff, this is just like a side project. Like I spend like a couple of hours a week on like, if that, on the Libertarian Party. And like literally 5% of my time was enough to throw the entire National Libertarian Party into like a complete tumultuous situation, which wasn't my intent. I wish they would just leave us alone. And I wish they would, follow the evidence that what we're doing in New Hampshire is working. Do I have to like? I guess I should like explain all this. I can't believe like if crypto's not.
No, we just want to say, look, we want you to explain all of it, go into the lore, but like wholeheartedly, our official podcast position could not be any closer to the idea that like people who vote for the Libertarian Party are huge losers. Like the biggest, like these people, like, and I don't mean losers in the sense of like these people like they have uncool interests. I mean like quite literally these people like are addicted to losing. Like,
Right.
these
The
people
only way that you
enjoy
can
losing.
actually bring yourself to cast that ballot is if you have like a deep personal belief that you must do everything in your power to personally lose, right?
Yeah.
Like, you cannot support winning.
100%. The last election I voted Libertarian for president in was, I think, 2008. When I was young enough to think that could make sense.
So it's your fault that we had Obama. It's personally, it's personally on you.
That's true. I'm the reason we have Obamacare, and so that's all me.
Every time I hear that, I just see that meme of like a libertarian guy like really smugly walking over to the ballot, and it's like 599 for like the red, 600 for the blue, and like 1 for the yellow.
Yeah. Well, and it's the social dynamics.
Tell us the backstory. So firstly, you end up in New Hampshire. This is like publicly known or whatever, but like I said, we can cut anything that you don't want in. But you end up in New Hampshire. It's like, tell us a little bit about you. How you end up doing LBRY, which is, I understand how it's pronounced. Tell us a little bit about it, how and why you end up doing it, and how you end up in New Hampshire, which I understand is through the Free State Project.
That's right. Yeah, they're substantially separate stories, but they, touch a little bit. I've considered myself a libertarian for a very long time, sort of once I was exposed to those ideas. And particularly for me, it's more about the ideas of free markets, voluntary association, Hayekian knowledge. I think these ideas are really good and important. They resonate with me very strongly. I am someone who appreciates, sort of that, great man theory of history, this idea that there are, small numbers of people who have outsized impact. I think this is true in politics and business and culture, in this kind of thing. And the more these ideas like naturally resonated with me as soon as I saw them, as soon as I learned about them, they just felt true to me. I also realized that, libertarianism is very unpopular. Like I try to see the world as it is, and libertarianism is a very unpopular ideology. And so I mostly didn't do politics. I was like a little bit of an internet libertarian. I would read things, but, I mostly played that stuff close to my chest. I was living in Philadelphia, and when Bitcoin came out, and I was running another startup at the time, but when Bitcoin came out, it resonated with me. I was thinking about it, and I just sort of thought about it from a first principles sort of sense of like, well, what is this? It's a really crappy database with interesting properties, right? It's a really terrible database technology if you're into tech. It's like, this is the worst database I've ever used, but it has this interesting property that no one can remove records from it. And you give up a lot of things to get that property, a lot of things you would normally want in a database technology, but you get this property where, it's censorship resistant. And I was thinking about how else you could use this kind of technology. And as someone who was into this sort of BitTorrent type community, I was like, oh, this would be like a natural fit. You could use a public blockchain, write metadata, point at decentralized records, point at a hash in a decentralized network, and that this would be like a really like logical system. I, as an entrepreneur, when you're a startup guy, you follow traction, and we got all this traction as a YouTube alternative. And so we ended up growing the whole thing to tens of millions of monthly active users as like YouTube, but you can say that, the COVID vaccine kills you. And this is like how we got a lot of our, public, traction, for better or worse. And there was other stuff. I want to be clear. It wasn't like a lot of what YouTube blocked was like completely reasonable stuff. YouTube is still terrible towards.
I was going to say, yeah, back in the day, I remember this was during the period where YouTube was just like, oh, you have a channel where you mention firearms in any capacity, demonetized, banned. Right. Like we've mass IP blanket banned you and all of your parents. So not good.
Yeah, I mean, the censorship regime in the late 2010s and early 2020s is really ridiculous. It's gotten better. I think it's still bad. Even X, as much as I love it, I post there a lot, is still like not where I would like a site to be in terms of how they.
Do you think there's any hope really for like like censorship seems like it's one of those things that it's always going to be present in the net in some capacity, at least in like the clear net, any sort of like thing that normal people can use, right? And it just appears that the line everyone's towing is like, can we make this subtle enough that people don't realize it's there? And then once it starts getting super egregious, like people start freaking out. But like, it appears that just over time, the base level of censorship people are acclimating to is increasing.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think theoretically, to me, you could solve it with the right technology or the right design, and that was the attempt of what we were doing. I was trying to bring censorship resistance to the normies. Like that was the actual goal of what I was trying to do. I moved to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project, which is or I like to call it the Free State Movement. It's this movement to have libertarians, I would say right-wing libertarians at this point, like a lot of the Free Staters don't get along with the broader libertarian movement, because the libertarian, there's a lot of layers to this. The word libertarian has kind of gotten lost. It's gotten defined by the Libertarian Party, which is full of people who are substantially to the left and substantially more retarded than the average libertarian. And I think this is why a lot of people with libertarian attitudes don't use the word libertarian anymore. I talk to, elected Republicans and so on all the time. And they're like, oh, they'll like whisper to you like it's like a secret that they can't say out loud. Like, I'm kind of a libertarian. And I think the Libertarian Party deserves a lot of blame for that.
No, they're 100% of the blame. Like, if I ask my parents right now, if I were to call them up and say, like, what do you think of the Libertarian Party? They're going to say, like, aren't those the guys that, like, they go up naked on stage and talk about how you should smoke weed and, like, we should get rid of the age of consent? And then it's like, that is what they do. Like, that's actually just what they do.
Yeah, so it's a very messed up dynamic. The Free State Movement, though, is succeeding as a libertarian movement. We have more than 100 people elected to the State House. Actually, before I came on this podcast, I was at a brunch with multiple elected people, leaders of institutions. We had Orrin McIntyre.
Notice how he left them to come on the podcast. Really shows you what's important in American politics.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
The podcast class reigns supreme. It's never been a better time to be a podcast.
This is where the real power lies, right here.
Yes, true.
On this show. So I moved to New Hampshire as part of this Free State Movement. I live here with my wife, my 4 kids. I think it's a tremendous place to live for people with these inclinations. It's a great place to raise a family. But, I realized, when I was here, and I've been the executive director of the Free State Project, I've been on the board of the Free State Project. I realized that the Libertarian Party does have this outsized impact on the word libertarian. And so if we're fighting for the word libertarian, then we want to have the Libertarian Party, be aligned with us. Now, everyone here gets elected as a Republican. All of the Free Staters who get elected, they get elected as Republicans. And so a bunch of Free Staters, partially with my encouragement, kind of came and took over the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire back in 2021. And it's been a 5-year, this is not even the first time they've tried to disaffiliate us. This is actually the second time that they've attempted to, disaffiliate us.
What was the first time for?
The Libertarian Party is it's like not everywhere. There are some states that are doing well, but it's predominantly left libertarians. It is predominantly the like, hey, we should be naked around kids. And it's like these kinds of like freak people because they don't have anywhere else to go. None of the other parties will take them. And so instead of libertarianism being, which again, these ideas of voluntary interaction, free markets, competition, entrepreneurship, there's a lot of you're recognizing sort of the downsides of this massive government and so on. There's a lot of libertarian ideas that are likable, but the ideas are now defined by this Libertarian Party thing, which is full of people that no one wants to listen to, no one wants to consider what they have to say. And so much so that even when they see someone doing it well, right? Like when I took over the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Twitter account, it had, 4,000 followers. It now has, 110,000 followers or something like this. And it's the most followed state. We get the most attention, and they're just bitter and angry about it. These are people are such losers that when they see someone succeed, they gotta, cut their head off. And of course we see this in all kinds of domains, not just in politics.
So you've successfully run up the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire's Twitter account. Do you have any secret strategies?
Poster occupied government, man.
Yeah.
Totally poster occupied government. Just like. How did you become like such a powerful force in libertarian politics? And it's just like, I ran up the Twitter account, bro.
Well, it's like, it wasn't even something I was spending substantial time on. I do admit I spend more time on X than I probably should. But, I just like hop over to the account and I just like would say, something. There wasn't this grand plan. Like I was doing this at one point I was running the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire X account while working essentially two full-time jobs. And I was just hopping on here to, throw a post. And like, nonetheless, like in 10 minutes a day, I was able to, grow the account, much more than all these people who had been in the Libertarian Party forever. And so a lot of this is like bitterness. Like these people they really are, you cited the speech I gave earlier. It's like, they're such spiritual losers that it's like impossible to do anything with these people. Like they're so full of bitterness. I resent the government because I feel like it holds back people from doing things, from building more things, from achieving things. Like one of the most offensive things the Trump administration has done to me, and I'm generally a Trump defender, is that it took away Fable for like a week because, hey, this is a really powerful tool. This is why I hate the government. I could have a voluntary relationship with this company and we could be making things, and I can't do it. This is why I don't like the government. But for a lot of these people, they're like, the government is in the way of me living in the dirt, and I would like to drag everyone down in the dirt with me. And the thing that's in the way is the government. And so you can hate the government from like all kinds of different sides.
Yeah, it's like there's 100 million different paths you can get to this one central stance of libertarianism. And it turns out that like a lot of them are actually just like kind of communism in a weird way.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And, I've realized that, and that's the weird part about what's happening in New Hampshire is like, when you're just a critic, you could agree, right? That we don't like the government. In New Hampshire, we're actually like ruling. I'm not saying we control the entire state, but we pass laws every single year. Dozens of laws are passed, by our guys. And that's a lot harder. Like now you've got to make decisions. You've got to face the messy aspects of reality where your perfect policy solution isn't possible. And now it's like, well, do we do A, B, and C? And all A, B, and C are all imperfect, right? None of them are what you want. But these are the only options that are realistic that can actually be achieved. And so it's been interesting to see, the movement I think it's maturing. I think it's the most mature libertarian movement in the world because, we're actually wielding the sword. But
because like literally, I was going to say you're the only libertarian movement in the entire history of the universe that's ever had meaningful amounts of like power, which leads to the fact that you now actually do just have to like reckon with the decisions, whereas everything else is like, it's like Marxism, right? Where it's this weird abstract political thing that you can just do endless theory crafting about because it doesn't matter. Like it's not happening and nobody will ever get it to happen.
That's right. And a lot of these people are now haters of the Free State movement because people are making these, imperfect decisions. I have I like to come up with the most sort of like offensive framing of any possible idea. It's how you persuade people. And so I call it secret sociopath political theory, which is like everyone is actually a sociopath. Like you can model political perspectives much better if you just imagine that everyone is a sociopath in the sense. And what I mean by this is basically no one holds a set of political prescriptions by which they will have less social influence, they will be lower in social standing and so on the other side of their proposed political transformation, right? Like no one does this. Everyone's set of politics, even the distributionist liberal, like they see themselves as like the elite, like handing out, the stuff. Like it would be good for their, social standing.
It's like the nobody votes out of their own interest theory, right? Like everybody is always a rational actor voting in their own interests, but sometimes their interests they just might be crafting them wrong in their head.
That's right. Although I think also the one like addendum I'd have that is that these interests are not economic; they're related to social standing, and so like my social standing may improve by forcing everyone of a certain wealth class to give money or whatever. So it's not necessarily economic interest. It's like this sort of social standing kind of interest. And so I think this is completely is essentially completely true, and or like rough directionally true. And but this is one of these things that like very few people want to acknowledge. Everyone wants to pretend that it's altruism or whatever, like I'm trying to do.
This is the weirdest thing when people are saying like I'm voting like altruistically, like I'm voting for the other guys, bro, and you're just like this. Like if this were true, you would be the biggest retard in the universe. But I don't believe that it's true just because it's like I know you as a person, and the type of person you are appears to be very like self-motivated usually. So
that's right. And so I think, I'm of the opinion that like libertarianism actually isn't good for, for a lot of people. I think it is good in the sense that it unleashes innovation. I do think, and again, this is one of the reasons I very much still consider myself one, is I do think human innovation, ingenuity, the types of things that humans invent and create under free markets or under capitalism or just generally under low constraints is remarkable stuff. But also the truth is every single time this happens, everyone hates it. And we're going through this with AI right now, where it's like, to me, as someone with this mentality, I'm like, all this stuff is amazing. It's so exciting. But of course I can use it, and I can wield it, and I can get it. But that, 80% of people are, I don't know what the polling data is, but it's like, 80.
AI, I think, polls worse than crypto ever has at this point.
Yeah.
It's like shockingly,
which is really hard. Like
it's
really
very
hard
difficult to achieve. Like, and it's because everyone knows about it too. Like with crypto, it's like you can't achieve 100% of society hating crypto because only like 50% of society will ever even be possible to care about crypto. Whereas,
but you guys aren't.
AI,
You guys are excited. You guys are excited about it, right? It's exciting.
I personally love AI, but I've also like I'm out in the Midwest for the next like month or two, and I can tell you that when I'm talking to people around here, it's like, you just don't mention this shit, man.
Well, right. And so I want to live in a society dominated by people with this perspective, right? Who aren't scared of the, future, who want to embrace it, who want to embrace these things. And this is just a really weird, and I don't mean that in the Henrik sense, capital W weird, but it's just a weird perspective. And I'm like, well, I get that at this point I accept it. I'm not trying to persuade anyone. I just want a place where these kinds of values can dominate. That seems achievable to me in New Hampshire. It has to happen somewhere. I do think there's enough people, even if we're minorities, the gays did win eventually. So, it is possible for, minorities, to eventually get their way. So, that's the goal.
If you think about it, libertarians are like the gays of politics. Is a great take.
That's one of my also unpopular takes, that libertarians are like like the gays of politics.
So you end up in New Hampshire. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, I know I'm making you run through the motion, explain the whole thing, but I do think the Free State movement is like a very interesting movement, actually. Can you give us like a quick rundown on that?
Sure. Yeah, it was founded as a sort of an assurance contract, where the idea was, it was recognizing that libertarians have lost for a long time. And it was founded under the theory that if you had, around 5% of the population as, really hardcore dedicated people, that minorities, can win. This wasn't cited in the original essay, but like Nassim Taleb has this idea about like what is it, the most intolerant wins. And so it's like if you're really strong,
Yep.
if your opinions are really strong as a minority, you can often get your way. And so around 20,000 people, basically agreed to this idea, and the idea was we'll all go to the same place. We'll all move to the same place and attempt to be politically effective. I believe around 10,000 people have moved here, but it's really, really difficult to count. It actually wouldn't surprise me if the number is much higher than that. And I will say also, having been here, I've recognized that some people are worth hundreds or thousands of other people, and so, but we have gotten some incredibly quality, people here. Like I could name elected politicians. These names won't mean anything probably, but like people like Jason Osborne and Travis Corcoran and Keith Hammond, and like these guys are really reshaping the state in a positive direction. And they came here as part of the Free State movement. And so that's the idea, is rather than try to win in America writ large, concentrate in one place. And, I'm not like wholly an American doomer, but I think we have a lot of problems, like the democracy has no brakes. Even when, Trump was supposed to be this like rare moment to get a correction, we've gotten some like small corrections, but I don't think America is going to be the type of place that I would like it to be anytime soon. Probably not in my lifetime, possibly not ever. And, the way that things have happened in the world is a small number of talented people, kind of get it and they build something new. And I think that's what we're in the midst of doing here, in New Hampshire. And it's like, I don't know how to describe the political climate well to people who aren't here, because in most places, like libertarians are like a laughing stock. And here it's like, we're an actual enemy. Like you'll see these signs, like the leftists will put out these signs, like New Hampshire is not your free state project. Like we're the enemy. Like free staters are the enemy, more so than the Republicans. The free staters are the enemy.
Wow.
Here in New Hampshire. And that's because
People hate winners, man.
Yeah. So, I think, again, like the kinds of things that I value in the world are increasingly rare. I don't know where else to get them. I don't know if I should name him on this, show, but there's a influential, couple, sort of from the San Francisco ecosystem. They moved out here, just around a year ago. And it's because there was nowhere else for them to go. It's like, yeah, San Francisco might be a better place for work still, but you can't raise your kids there. Whereas here, like my kids have peer groups that are all, reflecting, our values.
Your values,
really,
yeah,
really
your
hard to find.
values, and like who you want them to grow up around, and
That's right. Which a lot of the research says is like the most important, thing.
by
especially
far
now that-
the most important
Yeah.
thing, dude.
Yeah. And so
Like,
it's like
cannot be
you-
overstated. Yeah.
You can't buy this stuff at a private school because a lot of all the private schools are still, reflecting sort of shitlib values. You find this stuff everywhere. And so to actually find a culture that, celebrates success, that encourages kids to push themselves, that, encourages people to be their best, that, that doesn't encourage, shame around talent, that, trusts children to challenge themselves and take risks and so on. I never, I'm not going to claim I've been everywhere in the world, but like I've never seen anything else like it, like what we have here in New Hampshire. And it's one of the reasons that I'm optimistic. Like in November, New Hampshire is probably going to elect at least 5 and maybe as many as 10 Gen Z, like men under 25 who are like hyper-based right-wing libertarian guys. And they're going to be in the State House. And it's like, it's not just 1, it's 5 or 10.
Yeah.
It's really incredible.
Yeah, and in normie politics, you're like not allowed to do anything. before you're like 50.
That's right. Yeah. And so, again, here, I just think things are a lot different. I think it's still kind of early. Like, I don't want to like overstate that we've won or anything, but it feels like I've been in startups where you're hitting that phase where you're like, oh, like we're doing this, like we're succeeding, and when it comes to this kind of project, it's a little bit slower. It doesn't move quite as fast as a startup does, but we're in that cycle where we've got that product market fit. We're doing something that's working that no one else is doing, and it feels like something special is happening here, and it's definitely worth checking out. For anyone who sort of shares these dispositions.
Yeah, within the cult of like the Free State movement and going and hijacking the Libertarian Party, obviously, number one thing you can do, posting things on twitter.com. Number two thing you can do, moving to New Hampshire. What is like further down? Like what is, the gateway drug?
Inside of the state or outside of the state? By the way, I assume that was cult complimentary.
Yes, of course.
I think it's just cult like descriptive at this point. Like we're kind of post implications about the meanings of words.
We're very post. I mean, the whole podcast is called Plausibly Deniable, which is like the number one way to like nuke your plausible deniability is like reference the act of plausible deniability.
I'm lying. This is called the liar podcast.
I told several lies already, so obviously nothing on this.
Yeah, so I think we definitely think posting is good. We take a lot of it seems like you expend a lot of political energy explaining to like some well-meaning people, I'm sure, in the same way Trump says, like, and some good people, I'm sure, but like mostly people who are addicted to like losing in a principled way, right? You spend a lot of energy explaining to these people, like, no, actually tweeting, things on twitter.com that might not be super nice is how you win elections, and that's how you affect change, right?
Yeah, so I would say I'm personally like not. I help people win elections a little bit. Like I donate money and I door knock sometimes and so on. I see my role as like more of this external communicator trying to convince some of those well-intentioned losers that there's like another and better way to do things. Like you don't have to lose, it's tough because
I think this is the way it works, though, dude. No one's excited to like go waste, a weekend of theirs voting or, God forbid, like canvassing or knocking on doors. It's not something like for better or worse, policy is what matters, right? But like policy is downstream of everything else, right? You don't win with good policy. You win by loudly promoting the effects of your good policy. You win by like owning the libs on twitter.com. Like it's obvious that like the marginal policy wonk is not what delivered like a 2016 or a 2024 win. What delivered like a marginal 2024 or 2016 win is like a person on twitter.com who like posted, like, I mean, this is like a funny thing to say, but I really wholeheartedly believe this, that like Ben Shapiro owning the libs compilation number 54, like, is more important than like the modal, like the marginal guy at like a think tank, right?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I'm not sure how much of it happens on X specifically at this point. I do think X is like hopefully still influential and sort of.
I think X is like upstream of the stuff that actually matters. Like you meet really big Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers, and all of them are on Twitter. Some of them do post on Twitter, but a lot of them don't. Like we met recently these super famous models that are like some of the most famous, like these European guys.
They're men, by the way. We're not flexing women at you. They're male.
Yeah, they're men, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. I was promised before I came on this show that a woman has never been on this podcast, so I just want to make sure.
Yes, we've
never had a woman on. Actually, true. Yeah. We keep inviting them, and they don't want to go. No, I'm joking. We obviously haven't invited any of them on.
I have a few relatives who fairly regularly hit me up every time a new episode comes out and say, like, I noticed there was no women on this one. Also,
like these people, like these guys are like total, like, they really care about looking good, and they're posting Instagram stories all the time, and they go clubbing, and these guys are like one of these guys is like one of the top 5 like male models in all of Europe, effectively. And
You monitor
these
social media
guys.
closely, I assume.
I
This is
have no
something. This
idea,
is
but
something.
like
No.
it's illustrative of like.
I'm gonna run defense for Sayla. Sayla, you don't have to do your cope. I'll cope for you. The thing is, Sayla, obviously straightest man on X. He knew nothing about any of this weird homo modeling stuff. But as a result of us hanging out with them, everyone came up with and was, oh my god, is that? And then they would say his name, and we were like, who the fuck are these people? So Sayla had to start. Sayla had to start researching, and he eventually was like, dude, we just hung out with like the Omega famous like male models of all time. And now
I'm like your
whenever he
boomer
tells
dad
people
who
that,
hangs out with like Charlie D'Amelio totally by accident, and then it's like, holy shit! Like I need to start like no, she's really big on TikTok. Like this person's really big.
and so I've watched him gradually like price up when he tells this story. Like he started off and he was like, we hung out
I
with
started
these
being like German, like oh these German models, and now I'm like the third biggest male model in all of Europe.
Yeah.
But the point is to say these people know who Curtis Yarvin is, and like these people know who these people are, which is really crazy. And so I think Twitter is upstream in the way that like 4chan historically was upstream, right? And so yeah, I think if you really want a mass audience, and I think people, whether you're a part of the poster class or you're a politician or just generally, one thing you should do is you should start a brand new TikTok account. Like you should clear your cookies, open up a private browser, and go to TikTok or go to Reels and like scroll through for a bit to get an idea of like what normal people actually consume. And it is vastly different than the stuff that's on Twitter. And also, you self-select yourself into a certain group of people on Twitter pretty hard. But I do think Twitter is still very, very much upstream. But sorry, I was saying that like I think the poster class is very important politically. It's like the shock troops, right? And, and I think that's what gets people motivated.
I actually experimented with using TikTok, and I was just like doing the equivalent of like your shit posting, and but on TikTok, and I got a million views on I think 2 different videos in the span of like 6 weeks, and then they banned me, and I was I don't want to go back. I should probably try it again. Like I do.
Yeah,
it's similar to my X posting. It's like sort of like.
So we've been told apparently Reels is like right leaning and TikTok is left leaning, which is kind of interesting. I think Zuck has gone totally hands off. Sometimes I see stuff or like my normie friends will send me stuff on Reels and it's like, dude, there is crazy shit. Like people are posting stuff there under their real like name and face that I would not post on Twitter. Like people are posting crazy shit on there.
Do you know who you're talking to?
No, dude. People are posting crazy shit. You get like the translated, like there's a little like AI cat speaking and it's like translated, I won't say what German leader of the 20th century, but like there's like translated speeches that like a little cat is saying.
Merkel.
Yeah, like
it's Merkel. Yeah,
and these things are getting like 10 million likes.
Yeah.
And like everyone who's liking this, it's under their real name and like any of their friends or family can go and like could see that they've liked this. Like it's quite crazy.
This was something that I've talked about a lot is like back in the day, there were these secret Facebook groups where people would go and they would basically have the same content as like various 4chan shitposting subcultures, but everyone's posting with their real name and face for all of this stuff. And that just that's like an instant intensity to 11 because now like all of this stuff spills out and it's not just like, oh, I posted this.
Well, that's what you're doing.
It's like
you post under your real name. So maybe this is like less salient to you because you do post under your real name.
I'm just saying that whenever you do anything with your real name, it becomes like it's just so much more of an actual part of your life now because there's some guy that recognizes you and they're like, or maybe they go and they comment on your Facebook, your birthday post that your mom made. And they say something, and now your mom is interacting with this weird subculture that you found on the internet while you're in college, right? And it's like your whole life is now a cartoon.
Like, yeah. I don't know. I mean, look, I get it. I understand. I've been independent, for a long time in my businesses and so on, and that's given me, I think, a certain freedom to post, under my real name. I also have a psychology that's like maybe. I'm like not necessarily like looking to get piled on, but I just like it's a fake story. But I loved the story of like Galileo, when I was a kid. Like I was always attracted to like what's true and also you can't say it. Like that's I've always like that's like I'm like a moth to a flame for that kind of stuff. and I post accordingly.
Did you see how he preempted the Curtis Yarvin attack there? He was like, I know this isn't true, but it's still epic and base. Lucas and I have been talking a lot about like the Curtis Yarvin, like I have the high ground, total ownage. And basically what this rhetorical strategy consists of is like someone goes like, wow, Obamacare was really bad for the country, man. Like 2008, a lot of bad things happened after that. And then like Curtis Yarvin will appear out of nowhere and be like, well, really, the entire American Revolution was a communist project in which the seeds of Obama's presidency were introduced to America in 1776, and it's like, dude, holy shit, man!
And then you have Nick Land, who's like, well, ever since humans first used rocks and stones as tools, we were destined to recreate techno-communism.
Yeah,
I guess he says techno-capitalism. I'm making a joke, guys, but yeah, you just can always win the argument by saying, like, no, bro, actually it was over 1,000 years before you even thought it was over, right? And you just keep going back until eventually... And it's like, it's all true, right? Like, every action led to the next action. So, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, good.
Sorry, what is that gateway? I want to get us back, because I do think it would be epic if, like, all the people I know on the internet moved to New Hampshire. And were like ruled over by like you and your friends.
Well, we need to move somewhere, right? But I have to say the problem, and I assume you run into this a lot too, but like, you know, the whole thing with libertarianism is freedom of association, right? But a big problem is that the majority of people under any sort of true actual freedom of association, they would just not be associated with by anyone. So these people inherently have to oppose the system that says like you can pick who you associate with. And I assume actually this is like a large degree of all of your social problems, right? Like all of the Libertarian Party's social issues come back to this thing of like, how do we legally allow ourselves to just not talk to these people?
Well, yeah, look, one of the reasons I think the New Hampshire strategy makes sense is, you know, because of its sort of constrained size, you know, it is a lot less threatening to the status quo, you know. Like libertarianism, if you try to make America libertarian, that's an inherently threatening project to an incredible amount of people, all of the programs that they're a part of, you know, their jobs, their welfare, whatever. If you say, well, we want to go be this way over here, away from you, you know, it's like threatening to the 700,000 New Hampshire residents who disagree with us, and that's it. And they can be, you know, rounded up and put on a car, and you know.
I was really worried. You said rounded up, and I was like, dude, I can't believe he's going for it. Put on a car. That's fine. Whatever. Pass.
I meant a Tesla. I meant they can get in their Tesla. The point is, it's easy. It's an easy thing to escape. Like we're not gonna seize that. They can sell their house, and we've helped. You know, housing in New Hampshire is quite expensive. You know, it's becoming like a gated community. You know, so it's like they're going to get a lot of money to, you know.
So you're saying you're doing it again. You're saying buy now. He didn't say it. It's like with the crypto coin. He didn't say buy now. It's going up, but I'm hearing it's going up.
Okay. All right. You know what? Lucas might be too smart for me, and I might need to find a better job to go on.
Yeah, you do want your propagandists to not be like too intelligent, right?
Well, no, because I'm trying to recruit intelligent people. So you can't, you know, I can't be too stupid. You got to find the right setting.
That is true. Yeah. It's like you can be a complete bumbling idiot as a technical manager, but you do still have to know some technicals, or they will not respect you and they will dunk all over you for your entire life.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know. I think the world is like in a very interesting place. I think there's this odd. I'm a big Robin Hanson fan, and the entity I'm working on currently is called the Free State Party. We have a YouTube channel. We don't post too much on X, actually. I'm still kind of figuring out the voice and tone for the entity, but it's this private club called the Free State Party. We put on some public events.
Here, actually, I want to. How do you figure out the voice and tone for an account like that? Like, because I know when I've done this, when I've worked with companies, it's basically just like post a little here and there, and then kind of like feel. It's some very like artistic, dubious process that I could not, like, if I had to write a document about this to give to someone, it's not going to be good. Like, it's not going to pass off any meaningful signal to them.
I agree completely. It's very intuitive. Lucas, you talk a lot about like dating and stuff, and it's like it's vibes you're picking up. I actually think like dating, sales, and posting all have there's sort of this.
Yeah, those are the three things that I should do less of, definitely. I'm very good at them.
But there's this like horizontality to them where it's like, yeah, it's tough to write down the rules, and what I find appealing about all of them is you just kind of you do things and you intuit and you learn from the responses, and to actually write it all down would be quite the challenge, and you have these I have this trained intuitive system that I built over time, by paying attention, but yeah, even on X, I mean, X is the closest thing posting wise, to doing like improv comedy, where you're just kind of probably. Or speaking in public, where you're just like, you can just kind of feel this sense and like ride a wave, a little bit.
Yeah, it's the way that I always think about it is like, this is especially true with dating advice, and the reason that like I think everything gets distilled down to dating advice is because it is just the most relatable human experience that you can express psychological concepts through. So that just is the go-to whenever you need to make an analogy for literally anything. But everything is like, you can write out a series of, like some guy is going on a date with some girl and it's his first date ever, and he asks you for advice and you write out like 4 things, right? And if someone has gone on 8 million dates and they have like a lot of experience with like specific types of women or whatever, that might make tons of sense to this person. But that guy who's only been on 1 date, these rules make no sense to him, because he's now like, it's like you don't actually even know where like the gradient of like the potentiality of any decision can lie, right? Someone says, if someone says, be aggressive, but not too aggressive. And it's like, what does that mean, right? You can get anything from like a guy deciding that he shouldn't make eye contact to a guy like walking up to her and saying like, I need to make love with you right now, as the response to that one piece of advice.
That's right. That's how I met my wife, actually. But yeah,
the eye contact one or the
unspecified.
Like there's a variety of tactics, so. I'm sorry, I derailed the conversation. I agree with you. Like, this is all kinds of knowledge. I mean, I have young, boys, and one of the things we do is we practice, sports and various athletic activities, and this isn't the same as the stuff that we were talking about, but it's like you can't like I can't give you a set of verbal instructions to tell you like how to swing a baseball bat well. Yeah. Like, you have to practice, you have to develop a feel for it. Once you have that feel, then we can maybe start to use some vocabulary on like how you can adjust in terms of turn your hips, quicker, or keep your hands more inside or whatever. But giving you tips before you swung a baseball bat, like, there's just not that much.
It's just extremely confusing. And I think this is something actually really good that like software development did over the last maybe 10 years is people basically don't believe that you can learn stuff by reading anymore. And neurotics will still read anyway, but they're reading compulsively. Like, if you go to the person who's like, they're reading all of the dating takes, trying to figure out how to unfuck their marriage or whatever, and you ask them like, honestly, do you really think that you're going to read enough about this and that's going to be the thing that does it? They'll usually just tell you, no, like, I'm doing this because I'm anxious and like worried, right? But I think the only way to fix it is to actually do the thing. And it comes back to, you can just do things. It's like, no, you have to do things. Like, if you don't do things, you literally will never learn anything ever. And you will just read other people's secondhand experiences, which confuse you forever, I think.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And again, because posting and dating are the same thing, like, that's exactly how I've, posted. And I kind of just figured it out by doing it. And I was never scared to, take shots. And sometimes I posted things that people screenshot and throw back in my face. I'm like, well, that may not have been the best one, but, but I wouldn't have gotten there, without taking some shots.
But you also, so this is something that I've noticed with you, like, everybody who has the mentality of, I'm just going to do the thing. And then if it goes badly and I'm like, I'm wrong, and this was a dumb thing to say, like, you can always just go back later and say, like, yeah, that was wrong. You guys convinced me. It was a stupid argument. I'm dumb for it. And then it's like, okay, like, it's done. there's a lot of people who think like, no, I need to have the ultimate, like 100% complete developed thesis on everything that I say ever, because someone might screenshot it and then call me an idiot later. And it prevents them from ever believing that they can retract or change an opinion or view, which leads to them sort of developing like an existential anxiety or neuroticism, I found. And you don't have this. You very clearly don't have this.
No, I've constitutionally been this way like my whole life, and so there is something like maybe a little bit different. I don't know how learned it was versus how natural it was, I'm a little bit detached from, Gen Z or some of the younger, like I know them as like colleagues or friends or whatever, but like it's not my world. And, that's what people say on the internet is like, that's why they're so timid and they're, afraid of this kind of thing. But I don't know. I think you have to get through it. And also I think, there's kind of a market for it. Like, I think some of my success has come from being, I don't really think that like brave is the right word for like typing words into a box, but like, not being afraid, is the more that something is lacking in supply, the more that if you provide, a little bit of it, the more demand there's going to be for it. And
it obviously just builds trust too. Like this is just a known, and this is something that grifters abuse a lot of the time too. So it's not necessarily like great overall, but it's just true that if there's a viewpoint that somebody is genuinely going to take heat for, and you see them espousing it regularly and defending it as they get attacked by people, then you're like, well, I kind of trust that they believe it more because this now has meaningful downside to their life, right? Like if I were to go out and say, there's all of the examples that I'm thinking of is like I would just instantly get banned from YouTube for saying them. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine if I were to go out and say some like age of consent thing and then just keep hammering this, like this is my one issue. People might be like, well, like he's kind of a scumbag, but he's probably not grifting me. Like he probably does genuinely believe that this is important.
Yeah. Well, also as someone who, despite, like I don't know if I'm like this weird combination of like hardworking and lazy, and it's a lot easier to just tell the truth all the time. Like it's less work. Like I don't have to like remember this like complex web of perspectives and like past narratives. It's just like, oh yeah, it's just like just saying what's on my mind and just like telling my personal truth, like just putting that stuff out there. It's actually like once you get used to it, it's really easy. Like you don't have to think about it at all. You just like literally just say what's on your mind. Like you're not sitting there like calculating, how this party is going to take it or this faction or whatever. And again, and I, as you said, like I found that people are like, at least a decent number of people are like attracted to it. They find it compelling or worthwhile. And so, I'm very rare. I'm not gonna say I've never entered into that mode, in high leverage moments or whatever, where you're like trying to think about, this person and what would they, but like for the most part, I'm just like, this is, I think it's on my mind. This is why I think this, and this is why, and it's worked well for me. So
I think this is actually one of the secret benefits to why being doxxed makes people see you as more trustworthy. Like, obviously, there's some, like, face, humans like eyes, they like looking into them, all that jazz. But I do think that something really nice that I noticed, like, when I doxed was, when I was anonymous, I had all of these different stories that I had to tell to try and obfuscate, like, where I grew up, or, like, where I went for this phase of my life, or where I worked. And so I was always just, like, misdirecting with a bunch of stuff to make sure that people couldn't figure out who I was. That obviously all makes you seem super untrustworthy. And then when you just are like, okay, well, I'm doxxed, so who fucking cares? I'm just going to say the thing. Now you just have a consistent story again, right? And when you're anonymous, like if you maintain actual anonymity, you cannot have that consistent story. Like it's part of being anonymous. You must be regularly telling misdirection lies to everyone, which like horrible for your credibility.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. And yeah, I've always seen, I followed you for a while on X, and that's always been my impression of you is you're, shooting it pretty straight, and you're certainly similar to me, like willing to just say things. I don't know how popular this is going to be, but this is what I think is true, or this is what I felt. And I agree. It's it's attractive. It's compelling.
So I'm kind of getting more shilled on New Hampshire here and this Free State thing. That's an amazing mug. That's pretty
Yeah,
funny,
how do you
actually.
dip your toes, right? If I'm like an
My
enterprising
wife bought this.
person,
I'm a big fan of I like the kitten beloved post where it's like in every successful relationship, your wife will have a more extreme and more retarded version of your own politics, and
truly,
which
deeply,
which is I would like to think that my relationship is very successful because my wife bought this and she thought it was so funny that
Well, I was wondering, like, what even is going on that mug? Because at first I was like,
I think
oh,
it's like every possible yeah, I don't know where it came from. It just showed up in my house like most things. I see the credit card bill, but I don't know. I don't know.
see I got the Amex notification, and then this thing showed up, man. Not a great day.
Oh no, I don't think this was expensive. But look, actually, my wife, I think, on the perspective of, my wife's awesome. I think very few men are like have to tell their wives that they can spend more money, and I actually often have to tell my wife that it's okay. You can spend more money, but at the same time, she still doesn't know what numbers are, and so it's like a weird dual, kind of thing where she somehow like doesn't want to spend money, but also doesn't really understand like what money is.
Like, I understand that this is a resource, but my understanding of the scarcity and the total volume of it is yet to be determined. So I'm like, sometimes I'll press the button, and then other times, not really.
Yeah, well, okay, all right. So maybe I feel like I maybe like lost the thread of the conversation, but this is a talking point. This is novel content for your podcast because people don't talk about this enough.
dude. We're not doing some like agenda thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna talk about this topic for 10 minutes and then.
Okay, but I feel rude when like someone asked me a question and I like never answered it and just talked about whatever was on my mind. But
oh, we didn't even notice.
Yeah, dude, it's totally
you've
fine, man.
Probably met smart women, and my wife's a smart woman, who are like, if you gave them like a math test, like they could do like fine, but they have no natural inclination to like ever do math, like to the point that they're like resistant, like even though they're capable of like doing math, they just won't do math. They just don't want to do it. Whereas me, like I'm doing math all the time. Like I'm very inclined to just like do math and think about numbers. And so it's like, it's not even a matter of ability. It's a matter of like inclination, as like a personality, kind of thing.
No, I was talking recently about, there was a girl that I was with who pulled out her phone and started showing me a bunch of videos of her ex, lifting weights. And, so he was using those bumper plates that are like mega huge, right? So they're not like most plates are metal, so they're very dense, and these bumper plates are made of rubber, so they're just much thicker. So it looked like this guy was lifting these enormous barbells filled with weight, but it was actually like fairly average weights. Like it wasn't bad. I mean, he was stronger. He was like a dedicated lifter strong, right? But I'm sitting there watching this, and this girl is like very smart, good at like she works in a field where like it's like she knows numbers when she applies them, but clearly she's being totally befuddled by the rubber plates here. And there's no great way to tell her that, right? Because you sound like you're coping if you say it. If you say like, well, actually, like the density of the material that he's using on the end of his barbell is much lower than the traditionally, and this is not actually that much weight. Like you just sound like a loser. But yeah, that's my experience.
Psychologically, like you can't help yourself. There's no way that you look at that video without adding up the numbers. Like that's your psychological inclination.
And of course, like I did do the thing. Like I did do the thing where I coped to her and I explained that it's actually, but like she just kind of like looked at me. Like, she was not impressed by my coping, right? Like she didn't like it.
Sure, I will say, dude, women do all these dating things, which is just like you obviously can't do. Like, imagine you're on a date with a girl and you're like, so this is how beautiful my ex's hair was. Like, look at how long it was. Like,
it would be totally absurd. Like, even if you take the exact same analog, I pull out my phone, I start showing her my ex's weightlifting videos.
Not weightlifting, but yeah, no, I actually think that would have been the best possible response. Like it's like she was like, "Sure," you're like, "Oh my god, that reminds me of like these," and you just like show her like photos of hot girls that of you with hot girls are like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this, you know, and I think that would be the like killer move there. Yeah,
that does totally show that like I am clearly still trapped in the matrix here, right? Like Jeremy would
Yeah,
escape
you are
instantly, pulling out
deeply
his
trapped in
phone
like
and
what
saying,
you're allowed to do. Yeah.
Well, no, you're agreeing. You're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, oh, let me show you. Okay, where you at? You don't
because they can't actually say anything in response. Like that's the funny thing about your response here is like, had you pulled out the phone and done this within the socially allowable laws, right? She can't, like, she has to then first imply that you're doing this to make her jealous before she can get mad at you, and she can't do that first step because it's mean. So it is just a total victory.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So we should start a dating podcast, obviously. That's the next step.
Well, okay, I was gonna say back to the New Hampshire thing.
Okay,
I didn't expect. I did not
expect to sell New Hampshire. I'm so bad at my.
No. I'm saying you've
just
actually
a horrible drug dealer, man. I keep asking like, what's the gateway drug, and I just can't. I like don't get an answer. Like.
Well, no, I mean, I came into this podcast and I was like, okay, so he's going to tell me that libertarians are bad and he's commandeered their party as a vehicle for the absolute savior of wherever he lives, right? The salvation of his home. But now I'm learning that the home is New Hampshire. And I'm also learning that it's like, okay, you're farther along in this project than I guessed, actually. And you have now created a New Hampshire commune.
How long has...
A little over 20 years, but I would say that it really picked up steam around 10 years ago. And then COVID was also a huge like injection where a lot of people came here in 2020, 2021.
That's what I was wondering. Did you use COVID as sort of like a marketing pivot for the fact that you can...
Well, I think it was remote work, right? Probably.
Yeah, well, also just in general, like, you know, people here, well, I will say, I think initially a decent number of people took it seriously. Although we have there's like a monthly meetup. It's one of the longest running ones, and it never stopped. I think in March and April of 2020 was like peak, probably COVID concern here, and there were still probably a quarter. The meetup was still like a quarter or a third full, and then by June, probably like 60 to 70% of people were like, well, we're done with this. Like we're just going to go back to living our lives. And that was, mostly my life. Like, look, the idea that a virus could be like, I don't rule that out of bounds, and so I'm happy to be a little bit precautious if there's, so I took it seriously for probably like 6 or 8 weeks, and as more data came out, I was like, I'm a relatively healthy guy. I don't seem to fit the risk profile. And I'm just going to be, I'm just not going to be very, concerned about this anymore. And, went back to living my life as normally as I could. And it was great that there were a lot of people here who, again, shared that perspective. And so, yeah, my kids were able to be relatively normal. I was able to be relatively normal. I think for people who are in New Hampshire curious, it's like, you don't have to be persuaded. You don't have to be convinced you're going to move here. Come for a visit. Come for a vacation. I'm happy to help, people, plan a trip or whatever. There's a guy, Dennis Pratt here, who runs an inn called the Independence Inn. It's a great landing spot. You can stay there. And
are all the things in New Hampshire that are related to this Free State project, are they all, like you say Independence Inn in my I imagine I had a debit card as a kid that just had like a bald eagle and like a flowing flag in the background. And the Independence Inn sort of evokes that same imagery. Does all of the stuff associated with the Free State Project do that? Like, is it all named like pro-America, independence, freedom, like bald eagles flying everywhere stuff?
There's a decent amount of that. So I'm not,
Nice.
I'm not going to say no. It's not everything. Like there's one of the, I don't know if they're like an official school, but like one of the places that people like to send their kids is this place called Latitude Learning. And that's
Nice.
not, that's not Free State branded.
It's not, but it's like, it's in the same way, it at least does evoke the image of like the globe with, what's the projection that they, like you at least have some sort of like a geometric measurement of the world, which is like a Faustian triumph of man over his environment in some way, right? Like maybe we haven't terraformed the earth yet, but we put lines on it, or replicas of it at least.
That's right. You look, something I think, I've spent time in sort of elite tech circles, in San Francisco or New York City, and I met a lot of, you'll meet a lot of people. Like, it's like you walk into these places, it's like, oh, everyone in this room is 3 standard deviations, in intelligence or higher. It's like a bunch of very talented people. I think the Free State movement in New Hampshire has selected for people who are like 3 standard deviations in like agency or independence. I think on intelligence that we have our 3 SD people, we have our 1 SD people, but there's so much, like, I think we selected for like independency and agency as much or more so than intelligence. And so you'll meet, like, there's so many small scale entrepreneurs where it's like, oh, I run a farm, or I'm a master electrician with my own business, or I'm a plumber with my own business. And so it's not quite as much the kind of person that you'll meet in the San Francisco place where it's like, oh, I'm trying to build a $1 billion company, like, I'm not gonna say we have none of those people, but we have a lot of these like very agentic, independently minded people who are great and trustworthy and honest. They're not geniuses, but they're capable, and they're good people. And then I do think, of course, we have our very smart and talented people as well. But I think we've selected a lot for this sort of like agency and independent mindedness in terms of who's ended up here.
So how does that work actually for the local economy? Is this, like, I would imagine this is a bit problematic if you have a bunch of entrepreneur types and you have a bunch of large corporations trying to hire. Like this, I mean, this specifically is the reason I'm not an engineer, is because I just don't really, I just didn't want to work in a big corporate bureaucracy. And so I left and I went to work with a bunch of smaller companies. But if you have a town full of people that do this and you're now trying to spin up the megacorp, it's probably tough, right? Or does it, do you not have enough people in this specific region that it's even disrupting the local thing?
Well, it's interesting, political power wise, I would say we're at 25 to 30% of like the actual levers of power in the state. We're like a substantial and meaningful minority that you can't get anything done without. And so we'll coalition with whoever to get stuff.
You just want to be the annoying 5%, man. It's like the greatest political strategy ever. It's like,
well,
just be the annoying.
Yeah, we're much closer to 5%, if that. And so we have this, again, you said we were like gays earlier. And so it's like we have this outsized impact compared to the percentage of the population, that we actually have. So it's like, so that's sort of like the lay of the land there, is that there's a lot of people who are like impactful and who make a difference, but the total population, is not that large. But also the native, the sort of like, and by the way, you don't have to move here to be a free stater. We encourage natives to wear the label. 60% of people who live in New Hampshire weren't born here as well. So it's not like,
oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's like Singapore.
That's right. Yeah. It is. No, it is. Like, most people who live in New Hampshire were not born here. The majority of people who live in New Hampshire were not born here. So
do you know what the percentages on this? This is my comparison for states now. Is what percentage of college graduates leave the state after they graduate? Do you know what that is? Is that higher than average? Lower?
I don't know the exact number, but I do know that it's not a good number. So I know
it's just not. It's not good for any state now. Like, everyone moves. There's this massive sorting where everyone, and also I think there's an effect where people now grow up somewhere and you just get grass is greenered straight into another state at this point.
Yes.
No, I think this is actually part of the problem that the movement has, and it's something that I'm interested in fixing. I think it becomes much more logical to be here when you're ready to, start a family, essentially. If you're
when you're like 20, it's like you kind of don't want to really be there, right?
Yeah, I moved here when I was 31. I think if you're a very ambitious young person, I think the pitch for New Hampshire, like, just being honest about it, is not as strong as I would like it to be. I want to be clear, like, we have plenty of people in their 20s in the movement. And I actually think if you want to be involved in politics specifically, the pitch is very
strong. You want to blow up your entire life for a 1% shot of being a congressman.
But if you want to be If you want to be in business, I think it's a little bit harder. I do think though. So it's like what creates a Silicon Valley, right? Like Silicon Valley was not always Silicon Valley. You know, New York City was not always New York City. And what are the criteria that lead to that happening? And I do think we actually have that increasingly, because I think we have a lot of I said this phrase for the first time 4 hours ago, and so I'll say it for the second time in my life, that we have a lot of like dry tinder of talent, where there are a lot of capable people who have moved here because they prioritize a lifestyle, a political climate, a place for raising their kids, more than maximizing their, business or financial success, where they might be better off in San Francisco or wherever. And so that actually, I do think, is what encourages the talented entrepreneur to come in. Like, if you came here, to start a company, there actually are a lot of very quality people.
There's just a lot of raw talent. Like, there's a lot of diffuse, undirected genius that appears to be there because they've realized that, okay, well, in the decision matrix that I have here, I'm either going to have to choose trying to become a billionaire or having a family, which will potentially fulfill me in life. And they chose the latter.
That's right. That's right. And well, also, like, becoming a billionaire does require a lot of drive. A lot of people who become billionaires, like, depended on the work of a lot of people who didn't quite have that same motivation or obsession, but they're nonetheless very intelligent, contributor types. We often look at the founder as like the person who made it happen. But if you look at any of these businesses, there's always, dozens or hundreds of people who are actually involved in making that business successful. And it's always a team of people. It's always a team of high ability people. And I think that there's like a lot of these people here who are, I don't want to act like they're doing poorly, like they're doing fine. They have a fine life, but we don't have our unicorn, our $1 billion company, that's New Hampshire native yet. And I think that will happen in our future. I think it's almost like an inevitable result of continuing to accumulate this kind of talent. And so I do think like that would be the reason. That would be like.
So do you think that'll pull in? Yeah. Do you think that'll pull in the younger people?
I don't know. I don't.
Because okay, so the way that I'm thinking about this is I'm currently, and for the next maybe month or two, I am in a town that has a very similar issue. It's somewhere that everybody loves going to raise a family, but it's just like you're not going to go there if you are 22 or something, because you're just not. There's no other young people. You're not going to meet anyone. It's awesome if you bring a girl in. If you go in looking for a girl, there's no women. And if there are women, they've been like paired off and married since they were like 15 or something like that. So it's just never going to be great from that respect. And there are a few actually very large multi-billion-dollar companies in this town. And thus far, they have failed to have any sort of meaningful pull towards the young people. And everyone keeps saying, oh, if you make more affordable housing, then the young people will come in. But I'm sort of skeptical of that.
I think it's so tough to kickstart that kind of like Silicon Valley thing. It's like, number one, you need a huge amount of capital. Number two, you need to like not punish people for making mistakes, even though they're often like pretty stupid mistakes. You need a critical mass of status enabling. Like, I think this is one of the things that the YC guys, as cringe as they've become later in life, I think they were deeply correct about. In a lot of ways, venture capital is not about the money. It's not about the connections. It's about giving you permission and status to go do something. Like, oh, you're like a smart 24-year-old, who maybe did a couple of years of like investment banking or consulting. Natural next step is for you to like go work at some industrial company or go, start some financial company or go into private equity or something. And it's like, okay, instead I'm going to take a pot shot on something. And like the difference between, the Thanksgiving meme where everyone is laughing at you and it's like, oh, come tell us about like your company, and like everyone being like really impressed at you at Thanksgiving, is often like big shot venture capitalists gave me a few $1 million. right? And like maybe the $1 million are not even really that material for the specific idea because it's not like a capital constrained business, but having the few $1 million creates like this critical mass of like forward energy, right? And that's so hard to do. I think you can start by like creating actually good colleges. One thing I'm very surprised that no one has done, and I think you guys could maybe pull off, is like I'm very surprised that no one has reworked college around being for employment first. I think like let's be serious. Like college used to be a place where like you went to become formed in like the classics and get like a complete education of the history of the world and like the Western canon. That's just not what college is anymore. I think like college is what you do before you get a job so that you're marketable at a job, right? Because they're not, also in part because like the government does not let you test your IQ and whatever. I think it's like probably there is enough energy in New Hampshire where you could get together like 100 businesses that are like, hey, we hire, each hire like 5 kids a year. And it's like, okay, between, 1,000 of us, we fire 5,000 kids a year. Okay, like we all commit to like first going to check from this college if we can hire anybody. Right?
I get the sense actually that you have done some pretty interesting things on the education frontier, Jeremy. Am I... Like,
well, I think they've mostly done it around like homeschooling sucks, but we want better tools in public schools, right?
Yeah,
that's like where a lot of the energy comes from for
yeah.
I understand there's really good like primary education, right?
I think that's right. I do think we're lacking. I don't think like we don't have a great university. I think it's a great place for raising your younger kids. Like I still don't know, when we'll also see what education looks like in a decade because I think it's changing a lot.
I know that's the other huge problem. Is it all? It's all changing so quickly that I don't even know how you would design a curriculum at this point.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, it's all changing it's all changing so quickly that I think like it would be twice as compelling to a kid. Like you're a kid, you're selecting where you go for college, right? You don't get into like any Ivy, or you get into like Cornell or Brown or something, right? But then you get into like this school in New Hampshire that says, hey, we're aiming to scale up to like 500 graduates every year and over the next 2 years, and then like 2,000 graduates. And we have like business owners in New Hampshire who have committed to give like, 5,000, offer us 5,000 jobs a year, where it's like, you're not like AI spamming applications online. Like there's a real job board and like a real process by which, the director of the university, like this is one of, I think the biggest things that like, the head of a university can do is when I'm hiring people, like I want to talk to the head of university. I want to be like, hey, who are like the 10 kids who you think are brilliant, right? And I want to talk to these 10 kids. And I think these people have become like very invested in controlling their little academic fiefdoms of like support staff and whatever the hell, and like gender theory of communist dance majors, which should be illegal. Like it should be illegal to teach a major. Like that is enough of a negative externality to society that I think there's like a legitimate libertarian case to be made. But I really do think that that is a thing. I think another thing I want to talk about, and I want you to, if you can round out like the case for New Hampshire and like what is the entry drug, right? Say you're a 25-year-old kid, you're like reasonably successful. Like, okay, where do I buy like a 100K plot of land in New Hampshire that 5 years from now will like appreciate a bunch and there'll be a bunch of other like moderately successful 25-year-old kids? I think that's a great thing you can do, right? Is like Lucas, our beautiful sponsors. Any of them you've been thinking about this past
dude week? I know we have to talk a little bit about Polymarket and some nice betting odds and all this stuff, but I gotta say the sponsor that's been on my mind recently is really Zcash, and I think we can be honest about why that is the case, right? It's a very good price. Zcash has been
the price
the
is a great
asset has
price.
Been performing amazingly as an asset recently, and I think they deserve
dude,
a round of applause.
They do. Huge round of applause, dude. Huge round of applause. So the last thing I'll say, dude, all these Bitcoiners who are like, if you loved Bitcoin at 100,000, you should love it even more at $2. It's like, no, I don't actually. Like, I don't love it at $2. Like, why would I? Like, imagine if people said that for anything else. Like, you loved our meal at $200. it's $2 right now. It's like,
I mean,
dude,
it is like,
what happened?
it's just, okay, this is the necessary thing that you have to say to build a community of people
You
who
have
don't
to
suck,
say this.
right?
You have to say this, but it's
You have to
obviously
say
not
this.
true.
You're attacking a very, very, very powerful Chesterton's fence right now, and if you tear it down, we instantly will become like Africa, right? Like, you don't...
We'll nuke all the prices, bro. Once people realize that the prices can recursively go down in the same way they can recursively go up. That's like one of the forbidden beliefs, man.
Because when you have a community of people whose their only desire is for price to go up, and they have no belief or understanding in like what the native asset is or like why they're holding it or any thesis regarding it, you just like, it's just the worst people ever. Like, you become genuine scum such that nobody else will ever want to buy because they don't even want to be associated with people who have previously bought this asset, right? Like, this is actually, I think, why crypto crashed out on everyone so hard this last cycle. Like, this is the specific Chesterton's fence that was destroyed that made all normal people hate crypto as much as they do.
We get a slow-mo replay, which takes me to my next thing. Okay, the World Cup. I'm not a big bettor, but I've heard that Bibi Netanyahu, okay, I have credible information that Bibi Netanyahu is pulling for Argentina, okay?
Is it really Netanyahu?
And I've just,
I thought it was Netanyahu.
Dude, none of us... It's really bad that we have a podcast because neither you nor I know how to pronounce things, man.
We could have an entire like 45-minute edited together segment of just
we could have a supercut of all the
mispronouncing
time we've
words.
talked about how we don't know how to pronounce things. Yeah, we could, like the plausibly deniable
No, like not even the times
pronunciation guide.
Like, we now have enough volume of us just mispronouncing words that we don't even have to include the parts where we say, is that really how? It's like, you can just post the video of us saying things incorrectly.
30-minute supercut of us saying things dubiously correctly / incorrectly. But yeah, dude, Argentina, Bibi, okay, the big Yahoo. He has been on a roll. Have you never heard this? The Zoomers say this. No, they go the big Yahoo.
Dude,
that one will be a big hit at the gym. Pull that one out of the gym, dude.
Bro, it's pretty over for Israel. If the Zoomers are saying the big Yahoo.
No, but I think it's actually coming around to like some sort of like post-ironic. I think it's coming around in like some post-ironic sense, which is the way I'm saying it, right? We're like, dude, I'm in favor. Like, the big Yahoo is clearly calling Infantino and being like, we need Messi to win because, dude, just the video of Millet doing like full body, like maximal surface area coverage onto the Wailing Wall in Israel is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite photos. Like, all other world leaders go and they like solemnly and very seriously place their hand on the wall. And then Millet goes and does like a full body press, like his pelvis, the tips of his fingers, his toes, just max wall contact. But this is all to say that I think on Polymarket, there's some serious mispricings going on here, okay? I think there's a few things. I'm not a huge sports bettor, but I think
I was going to say, it's going to be like our one call that is incorrect. Is Sayla's now going to give us a sports betting take?
I'm not a big sports bettor, okay? I'm not a big sports bettor. I'm not going to tell you which way I'm betting. I'll just say I think there's some huge mispricings in the World Cup. And a lot of this, the thing you have to realize is that retail does not use prediction markets as like, what do I think will happen? A lot of times retail, particularly for sports betting, uses prediction markets as like, what do I want to happen? And the big difference between most sports markets...
It's like a trip. It's the K-pop stands.
Yeah,
where it's like
I want these people to win. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so the other thing you have to understand is that most sports books have odds set by like professional forecasters who work at these companies. But on Polymarket, that's not what happens. You're getting a market price that is an aggregate of like, you know, retail, institutional, etc., people who are playing on Polymarket. And so I think a huge thing is like, if you think that a certain team is like a lot of people like them or a lot of people hate them, that probably is influencing the odds in that direction more than it would in other sports betting scenarios, in my opinion. But yes, I'm not a sports bettor. Okay,
so you're coming on and saying like, yeah, dude, like I'm not saying what I would pick, but I'm just saying like the people ain't picking right. Take from that what you will.
I'm saying there's a lot of mispricings here. And I disbelieve the efficient market hypothesis specifically for prediction markets around events where a lot of people are like, who do I want to win as opposed to who do I win? Right? Like the most famous case of this was the Trump election.
Shayla is saying retail is scum and they have no idea what they're doing.
No, I think retail is like thinks that like prediction markets are some kind of like democratic vote where like whoever has the more dollars on their side like wins the game, and that's just not. It's like a very stupid and obviously like I mean I described
why
it
do you
like
think they're
obviously
accurate for
retail doesn't
elections?
believe that.
Because I mean,
I think for elections it works like that a lot too. Like
Well,
do
I
you
was
remember
gonna
there
say
was
for
like the one
elections, I think
French
it
guy
mostly
who
works.
voted for Trump, bet on Trump on Polymarket, and like nobody else was willing to take a big position in favor of Trump. Like this guy alone moved the betting odds. It's very well known. There's like the big article on him.
Okay, I was gonna say I assumed that there was big enough institutional.
Back then, there
investment
really
from-
was not big enough institutional players coming in on elections. I think now there are a lot. And I think now a lot of what happens during elections is like, obviously, elections sway like bond prices and things like that. And so now a lot of institutions hedge. And so maybe there's actually a potential mispricing there where these institutions are maybe like long the bonds of a country. And so they want to hedge that position. And so they bet in favor of the candidate that is like bad for the bonds, for the bond market, for example, right? Or for like the stock market because they're along the stock market. And so I think there's a lot of that actually now. Like if I were to say there's like an institutional mispricing on prediction markets, I would say it's probably in the direction of people hedging more substantial positions in other markets. Do you have any market that has caught your eye this week?
I mean, I'm just doing the thing again, right? Where it's like but I already did this. I already bet against Google having the best AI model by the end of the month. They're releasing some new thing. People are now saying, "Oh, it's gonna be the same as Fable. It's gonna be." It's like I don't know. I don't think so, man. That's my prediction. But it's like it's at 5% now, so you're getting. It's like you're risking a lot to get 5% on a not super guaranteed thing in like 2 or 3 weeks. So maybe at 10% it was worth it to me. I wouldn't say 5% makes any sense.
What do you think about the new two things I want to ask you on this? I'm sure there's markets for this. Like, what do you think about the latest OpenAI model? It's super funny, dude. They're doing these like campaigns on Twitter that are just like very ham-fisted, where it's like every influencer says exactly the same tweet, like literal copy paste. Like, I'm finally allowed to talk about this, and it's like, guys, come on. Like, yeah, I get that you have to do the marketing thing. Everyone does it. I'm sure Anthropic does it too, but like, do it a little more subtly, man.
Well, so the first thing that
and
I
then what
want
do you
to
think
say
about
is like,
Meta?
Meta, I have zero thoughts on, but my first thought on the Anthropic thing is like basically they had their best model. They didn't want to give it to everyone, but everyone knew that they were going to like if OpenAI came out with a model that was competitive with it, they were going to be forced to give everyone access to this thing because otherwise now they just don't have anything that can compete with their biggest competitor. OpenAI came out with something that was pretty competitive, and so everyone it was just an easy buy. Like it was a super easy buy a day or two
I think
ago.
there's a case here. There's also like a case here to be made for like a parlay or like hedging out two bets, right? Like if OpenAI releases a new model, then almost for sure Anthropic will extend Fable, right?
Well, the model I think was if they released the model and because what they did was they wanted to wait for the benchmarks to see is this model good enough that we even have to care? Like, is it competitive? And if it was a shitty model, they would have just said like, no, we're not extending this. Get fucked. But it was a good enough model that it forced them to extend again. And so now I guess we get it forever in the subscription plan. And the reason why being in the subscription plan matters is because otherwise you can only access it through the API, which just charges you like $10 billion to use this thing. And also makes it very, like if you just want to talk to the thing, like you want to say, okay, like I am going to these stores today. What, like, are there any better equivalents? What do I buy? What do I do? You can't really do that from like a command
It's very
line.
unwieldy to use the API on like mobile or something.
Yeah, like I don't want to be using Claude code, like booting up a Windows terminal so that I can ask this thing where the best place to go get new silverware is or glasses or some shit like that, right? Like it's totally insane.
So And this is actually an area I'm interested in exploring. Unfortunately, like a whole bunch of the laws that hold back innovation are federal, and there's just not that much you can do at the state level. But we have a political machine here where like an entrepreneur can work with the political machine, and we're not trying to do carve outs, where your business is, handed some special right. But if you're an entrepreneur who's like, I want to do this thing and we need to deregulate this area or we need to change this, that's actually very feasible. One of the big pushes over the last year, I believe we were like already at the top of the charts of most friendly towards biotech, right to try, medical freedom type stuff.
Oh, nice.
And there's a huge push to continue to get us at the front. Well, like I think we actually like are already number one or number two, and we're like, that's not enough. Like we want to be even better. And
it's like we want to compete with the weird offshore island entities that are technically like territories. They're not even states. Like we want to be competing with things that don't really have any legal jurisdiction.
Yeah. Well, look, Lumina, when Lumina was getting started, they had to go to Prospera. So like the first Lumina treatments, that cavity treatment, I think they did eventually get FDA approval. I didn't track all this.
Yeah. For everyone curious, I believe this is some sort of a weird bacterial treatment where they murk all of the bacteria that causes cavities. I don't remember if it works or not. But they did actually get FDA approval. They did release it. You can now buy it, and it's apparently like a one-time solution to cavities. Is what it's billed as. I don't know if it works.
I'm very apprehensive because I'm very conservative and like the small c, like things are very fragile and it's like very easy to fuck things up. I'm like very conservative about taking kind of like treatments like this.
Yeah, whenever someone is like, we've developed this solution for this minor problem that you can fix with like 30 seconds every like 12 hours of activity, and it's permanent and it will fix it forever. And I'm like,
it's permanent is always like, oh God, man. Like,
but also it does sound really cool. And I am kind of like, what if there is just a free lunch? Like maybe I can just use the infinite no cavity toothpaste and then everything's fine. Or I don't think it's a toothpaste. Let me look it up so I stop misrepresenting it.
They present it as a toothpaste. It's not. It's about replacing the bacteria in your mouth. I actually haven't used it, but I think it's innovation-wise an example of something where people are trying to innovate.
It's cool. They should be allowed to try it out. Yeah.
Exactly.
There is this kind of like very crazy hell scenario where like it ends up somehow being bad in some way.
That's
and
right.
like you make out with people and like it just starts reproducing and like that's it. It's over.
Well, so in New Hampshire, we're going to allow people to make left-handed chiral molecules of key substances so that eventually all of the world's biology will fall apart. And that's going to be part of our right to try. This was something that was, the Lumina stuff was illegal. They were doing it in Prospera was where it got started. I do believe it's legal in the US now, but this is the kind of thing like, this is a healthy activity, because part of the problem for like liberty-minded people, and I've talked to the Prospera people. I actually haven't been there. I have my first trip in 3 months or so. I'm going to go out there for the first time.
I've been. They're good people.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, you've got to. If you're trying to build something that works, if you're trying to scale this stuff, it's like, you can go down the road of like, vice crimes or gambling or whatever, and it's like, but you're not going to attract. Like you've got to attract like building types. The kinds of people who want to help, create the future, who want to be doing positive activities, who are going to build things that work and scale and so on. And so I saw, I've not researched Lumina at all. I'm not here endorsing it. I'm not saying it works. I totally actually get the small C conservative attitude towards it. It's why I haven't tried it myself. But directionally, like spiritually, it's like the kind of thing.
No, I think people should be allowed to try it. Like,
I'm definitely going to try it after
myself, but I definitely think people should be allowed to try it.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten shilled into it by just saying the name this many. It's like the meme of you need to say the word 7 times to an average person before they're willing to entertain buying it. It's like we've now hit like 12 times. Like I'm definitely going to buy it now.
Yeah. So you guys,
I'll let you know.
You guys get a sponsorship. Okay. So like clip this and send it to Lumina. Okay. And like,
listen, once we get a sponsorship, I'm like, everyone's got to try this. We are
but,
way
you know,
worse shillers than you, sir. Like,
Yeah, we've
believe me,
recently
man.
gotten a bunch of people hitting me up about doing gene therapies for like there's this one specific peptide, Clotho, that apparently it has like great I mean, I tried it. It made me feel very smart and clear headed and all that stuff while I used it, but it cost like $2,000 for like a week or something like that. So someone made a gene therapy for this where you can permanently have that effect. And I was like, wow, dude, it would be like the limitless drug with no downsides. Definitely let me try that. And so
Just the second I hear like with no downsides, it's just
I know,
like,
I love with no downsides. And then you have like 15 implied asterisks after it. Just like, but it's like, I'm going to try it, man. Like, why YOLO at this point?
Yeah, well, are we Gwern fans on this podcast? There's a classic. I don't know if this is too old of a reference, but Gwern,
there's like the nicotine blog post.
Yeah, he has this post, the like flowers for Algernon argument, which is
Yes. Yeah.
if there's low hanging fruit for like, oh, this one molecule would make you so much smarter. Like evolution's really good at finding these things, and so if evolution didn't find this, it tends to be that there were trade-offs, and it's not like there could be exceptions, but yeah, one magic molecule.
It's
like,
certainly conceptually a very strong. It's the kind of argument that like I don't know whether it's correct or not, but it's certainly like very conceptually strong as an argument.
Yeah, it's one of those arguments where you hear it and it feels very bad to argue against it, right? Like I hear it and I immediately am like, oh, anything I say in response to this is to some degree coping, right? It sounds very structurally strong.
Well, like with strong enough evidence, like we should believe, like it's not an argument that it's like impossible. Like it's not an argument like conservation of energy or like conservation of mass.
It's not literally impossible, bro.
Well, and there are cases with just like weirdly complex molecules. Like I think the GLPs might fall into this category, but no, now that I'm thinking about it, didn't we synthesize these from lizards? Biology clearly knows how to make this shit. Never mind. I'm coping again.
I think the GLPs are one of the most interesting examples because like all of the data appears to be very positive. And it could be in the case of obesity that like this actually is a novel evolutionary phenomenon where, wow, I have too much food. Like,
yeah, like we recently invented an environment where everyone is obese, right? Like it used to be you don't have enough food and you starve and die. And now it's like, now we have so much food that you're actually more likely to die from being a fat ass than from starving.
Yeah. And so I think things in that category are more likely to potentially be real, but if it's something like, and I think it's an interesting question as to, it's not clear how much evolution has been chasing intelligence. Like, I think it has been to some degree, but I think if it was like just chasing intelligence, we wouldn't see the world as it is today.
Well, this is something too. So you were talking about you'd been in San Francisco, like all the tech scenes, and so down there, that's very much so an intelligence chasing scene, right? But now you're saying you're over in New Hampshire in an area where you've much more chased agency, and I was wondering, like, you probably have some interesting perspectives on what the difference is in the type of communities that the people who chase intelligence versus agency bring, and like what the trade-off looks like.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I don't think that was like intentional. I think this was a result of the design of the movement. I'm just seeing it as it is. I'm not like, I would like more, highly intelligent people to move here. And I really want to be clear. I'm not saying that we don't have our share of them. I think it's like, well, you're asking people to act on this belief. You're asking them to act like early, to go first, to see the potential. Like you're selecting for people with agency, who are going to uproot their lives, who are going to change their lives, to come be here.
And I guess it's a lot bigger risk too, right? Because it's not like if you go to San Francisco for some job, it's just a huge city. There's just more things that you can do to safety net yourself if everything explodes, right? Whereas if you go down and you don't like a small group of people, it's a small town thing where it's like, it's very possible actually that you can know everyone within your relevant social sphere within a smaller town and crash out in a way that is not possible in a bigger city.
I would push back on that a little bit. I think, like, even inside of the Free State movement, the Free State movement is so large that I can't keep track of everyone.
Okay.
I can't know everyone. There's too many people. We're well beyond Dunbar's number, you know, and so it's not this thing where everyone is like fully legible to one another. I mean, to the point that it's a good kind of problem to have. It's like a scaling problem, but we need more. And this is one of my current projects with the Free State Party, is like, we need more tooling to, you know, to handle these things better. We need to learn from churches and other institutions, other social technology, other social mechanisms of like, how do you scale a social group in a way that is like trustworthy, and you have a label that means something. Like, the label has to mean something. Like, if someone is a Free Stater, I need to be able to trust them. I need to be able to, you know, I need to have some, and again, I think we like do directionally, but I think it's imperfect. And so, and also, again, worst case, oh my God, I moved to New Hampshire and I now live in the best state to live in. Like, all of the third party like ratings, like, we're not gaming this stuff. It's like quality of life, health, outcomes, you know, like,
What's the obesity like?
yeah, it's just a wonderful place to live. Like, even if the Free State movement doesn't succeed, New Hampshire is an absolutely wonderful place to live. Coming from Philadelphia, like, it felt like stepping back.
Coming from Philadelphia.
Yeah. It felt like
man.
stepping back in time, like, politically a little bit, where it's like, and maybe this is partially what's allowed us to succeed. Like, there's actually a lot less partisanship. There's a lot less people who've like dug in their heels and have made all this stuff their identity. Like, New Hampshire has more independents and like more split voters and all this stuff. Like, you have people who are like genuine, and just the quality. Like, New Hampshire's average IQ is like 102. The cultural attitude is like to be helpful, but also to leave people alone. Like, even going to like the DMV here is like completely different, you know, from going, to going to the DMV in Philadelphia, which is like a hot, sweaty building, you know, with an incredible weight. And here it's like the government, like I can just call, like, okay. When I talk about stepping back in time, I'm going to tell you, like, almost every like relevant political office, my elected officials, my town government, you know, whoever, I can literally just call them, and like a human being just answers in like 30 seconds, and I just talk to them.
That is kind of impressive now, right?
Yeah. Like, it's
kind of unheard of, actually, because it's like you deal with actually profit incentivized corporations now, where it's literally impossible to do anything other than go spin in circles endlessly with a mentally retarded chatbot.
Yeah. Like, I needed a record like related to my house, and like I call the town clerk, and like they answer in like 30 seconds. I'm like, hey, could you send me this? And I just have like the PDF, you know, emailed them to me. Like, it's like concierge level service, like, from, you know, it's like, it felt, you know, very weird compared to
okay, I'm gonna be honest, man. I thought you were kind of bullshitting me about all of this like New Hampshire elitism. But I asked ChatGPT here to rank New Hampshire on a variety of quality of life metrics. And the first response is, New Hampshire is basically an elite tier state on measurable quality of life. Probably top 3 overall, but with one glaring weakness: housing affordability.
Yeah.
So this is crazy, actually. Wow.
And
you have the overall literal number 1 spot in the best health ranking out of all of the states. Overall best state number 2. Very close to the lowest obesity rate. Literal no crime, like just zero crime. Economic opportunity apparently amazing. There's like 0 unemployment. This is a very impressive list. This kind of mogs, actually. Overall family friendliness, number 1. Wow.
Yeah. Like, there are parks everywhere. There are parks, like, I can't drive too far without hitting a park. They're everywhere.
Wait, you don't have income or sales tax?
No income tax, no sales tax. It's all property tax. It's property tax, and there is a business tax, which is, of course, if you tax a business, you're ultimately taxing the employees. But it's a business tax and a property tax. I don't like how expensive housing was. At the same time, I think it's a tricky problem because you like if overnight, New Hampshire tripled in size, which is like if you wanted to get housing, if you wanted to cut housing prices in half, the amount that you would have to build is like a tremendous amount. And so, I don't want us to be pricing quality people out, but I just think it's complicated how you solve it. My preferred way of driving down housing costs is actually to get like 500,000 leftists to leave in like a trail of tears, and open up that stock, for more aligned people, but I'm pro building. Like I'm not like a NIMBY type. I'm very in favor of building stuff, but I think it's also tricky because a lot of what makes New Hampshire work is the demographics, is the population makeup. And so from a like sort of Chesterton's fence, kind of argument, I'm like wary of like, tinkering in too grand of a fashion.
No, I mean, like, again, the town that I'm in right now, they're very against building any new housing because the problem is that they actually did this hilarious scam where they told everyone, yeah, we're going to be building new housing. Like, we've received a lot of complaints about this. And then they built like $1.8 million townhouses for everyone. And everyone was like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? How
Just super base.
This is not affordable. And they were like, what do you mean it's not affordable? Plenty of people have been asking for this. So,
dude, I just believe in like radical, I believe in like radically against civil rights era bills. Like the government should be able to like test you for IQ, and then like states should be able to compete. Like, oh, I want to offer this guy like a better mortgage. Like, I think that there's like great externalities off of like having this guy in my, and like this happens to some extent at the very high end, but it's very like crony capitalism, right? It's kind of not very open or transparent. Whereas it would be much cooler if it's like, hey, if you get a 1,500 on the SAT, you get like a cheaper mortgage if you want to move to New Hampshire, right? Or like maybe you do some political realism and you're like, okay, probably in your 20s you don't want a house here, but maybe we create like some sort of like New Hampshire account that like is tax advantaged and goes towards like you have to spend it on housing in New Hampshire. Right. And so like, hey, you're like 25, like put like 10K into this. And then by the time you're 40, you have a house that's like worth like $2 million or something in New Hampshire. Right. Like almost guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that kind of stuff is, fantastic. The only problem with cheaper housing is just how do you got, maybe it's a couple percent of the population. I don't know how high we want to put it at, but like this is the main. So much of society has been built around like getting away, from these people because we're not willing to like police them or deal with them. And this is why.
Yeah. So much is like you have to price people out economically because that's the only way you're allowed to not freedom of association with people. Right.
Exactly.
I think it's just the issue is when you lower the housing prices, the mix of people that you are now letting in favors people you don't want to let in versus those you do want to let in, right? So it's like you generally just want to say, okay,
yeah, but I'm such a big believer in this. I've always said like if I was president, like if I was running for president or like I won, like Selah is going to be president of the country, like God forbid. The first thing I would do is like a national like a broadcast that every single TV station has to put on air, and I'd be like, I'm gonna do everything possible to like nuke property prices. Like that's just the first thing I would do, and I think you would immediately go like up like you would go up like 20 points with people under the age of 30, like just immediately. And yeah, you would lose the boomer vote, right? Obviously, but like I don't know, you manufacture COVID 2.0 or something.
Yeah, look, I'm inclined to agree. The fact that I don't know what the median home price in New Hampshire is, but I'm going to guess it's like $450,000-$500,000.
It's actually, I think it's about 570. Yeah.
Well, thank you for looking that up. And it's
well, it's just like in my opinion, homes are like an ingredient in the family formation, right? Like homes are like, oh, you have like a recipe for a family, and it's like a man and a woman, and then it's like a home that they live in, and then hopefully a community around them, and like a job, right, or two jobs, right? And like the home seems to be the big one that people get stuck up on. Right? That, the dating stuff isn't going great either, but like, I don't know, maybe if we introduced a bunch of cheap homes, like maybe it would be better. We have a fun podcast episode coming out with Spandrel. Are you familiar with Spandrel?
Yeah,
Great guy.
I've read Spandrel for more than a decade.
Really?
Yes, Spandrel's like and Spandrel's kind of underground, right? Like he hasn't achieved like the Bay Area notoriety that Yarvin has achieved, but he's coined like IQ Shredder is his, right? Like a bunch of very influential stuff. And so maybe it's like we were talking with him about like how do you create family formation, like what is going wrong, and like maybe the government does just like need to give handouts to men contingent on them having a relationship. Like maybe you just do that, right?
Yeah, I'm okay. So I'm a little bit skeptical of that. One, I'll say, like in terms of New Hampshire housing, I want to come back to the point. Just one thing I want to get out. Like in terms of New Hampshire housing prices, it's like there are clearly a lot of quality and capable and aligned people who would be more likely to move to New Hampshire if they could get a house for $300,000 instead of $600,000. Like, I think that's clearly true. And so the question is, how can we do things that make it easier for those people to get here without the potential downsides of, who else might come? But my impression is people who are moving here are better, actually, than the average person who already lives here. Like, that's part of why New Hampshire is the way that it is in terms of who it's selecting for. And so maybe
immigrants are better than the natives.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. This is why I can't run for office. It's because I say things good. No, I look, the natives are also, very incredible.
Many such great people, I'm sure.
Is homegrown or whatever.
Immigrants are what we really want.
And then in terms of, the stuff about people having kids, I'm very hesitant. Like, obviously, like any particular policy, like principle of marginality holds, and so, like, probably there's some effect, for almost any of these policies. I tend to lean towards the explanation that this is like culturally dominant. It's like, look, you can have a kid in your apartment. You can have a kid like I promise you, like your 1-year-old does not know anything about her economic status and the size of the building that she lives in, or like any of this stuff, And so this idea
I think every guy kind of understands that, though, right? But I think the barrier on that one is women for the most part. Women just do not appear to want to reproduce in apartments.
Well, we also talked about this. I don't want to like rehash this, but I think one of the really big problems that the cultural barriers between the truly upper class, like the top 1,000 people, and the upper middle class have really been eroded away in a way that historically, like there's this great proverb, this great Chinese proverb. There's two peasants, all right, and they're tilling the fields, right, with like wooden hoes or bronze hoes or whatever. And one of the peasants goes to the other and they look at the golden palace of the king and they go like, what do you think the king does all day? I have no idea. It must be incomprehensible to us. And the other peasant goes to him and he goes, no, I know exactly what he's doing. He's tilling the fields inside of the presidential palace with a golden hoe. And it's like, there used to be this way in which I think, obviously there I'm talking about peasants, but I think there was a lack of understanding before social media and before the celebrity class was a thing, where the celebrity class is even worse because there's a subsidy on consumption because their job in many ways is to consume as part of a marketing apparatus, right? And I think that creates this big problem where it's like you're keeping up with the Joneses and it's like, no, you're like trying to mentally keep up with the top 1,000 people who are like loaded on credit card debt, have all of that. Like you're trying to keep up with the spending of like a Mr. Beast, right? It's like you're just not going to be able to keep up with the spending of a Mr. Beast. You want to send your kid to like a $25,000 a year private school, right? For all K-12 years of education, plus preschool, then college, then like you want a nice apartment, you want this, you want that, you want that. And so I think it's a keeping up the Joneses. Yeah, obviously you can have kids, like for most of society, it was like your whole family lived in like one room. I don't know, you just tell the kids to like fuck off when you want to have sex. I don't know what was going on. But I think I think cultural effects are much harder to change than economic effects, actually. I think culture is much less malleable than economics.
I agree with that, but I think culture is like ultimately the problem. I think, and so how you change that, I think, is quite the challenge. And I do think, in terms, you said, earlier you said everything is women's fault, and since there are no women listening to the show, I can say that I agree.
We actually do have like a strong contingent of podcast groupies, if you'll believe it. There's groupies for everything. Like, if you're good enough at whatever you do, there are groupies, and there are like podcast groupies. This is like a real
No,
phenomenon.
obviously, all of the women listening to the show are spiritually trans and great. But the
it's just we have to do that. We have a video disclaimer we need to make that just says like not you, the girl reading this, right? Like that's
it's for so many things. It just needs to flash like, but not you, the girl reading this. You're the most beautiful girl.
I'm actually not. I do think there are plenty of women who get it or whatever. And look, I have a great relationship with my wife. She would never listen to this podcast. It's just not for her. But it's fine.
But my wife, I know, is out there listening somewhere.
But I think, okay, something I've seen here. I see libertarian single men in this community who, like struggle sometimes, and it's like, and they're like responsible guys. It's like I know some single guy, I can name multiple single men who it's like they're financially successful, they already own a home. They're in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're, struggling, to find a wife. And they want to, they want to find a wife. They want to have kids. And their mentality, which I'm always encouraging them against, is like, oh, I need to like find a woman who already agrees with me. And I've seen, inside of New Hampshire, women come in who weren't particularly libertarian, who were, sort of standard-ish progressives, but they happen to be married to, a man who wanted to come here. And, women will change like a lot of the reason that women are progressive, this is like circular logic, but like they're progressive because everyone else is progressive. And this is like the socially acceptable view. And like women like are, especially compared to, I think, a lot
New Hampshire official state representative, women are malleable.
Yeah, but there's just a little bit of like hive mind.
No, it's true. It's obviously true. Yes.
Yeah. And so it's like I've seen women come in this community. They start going to like the women's events here. Like there's like my wife hosts like this knitting circle, and it's like there's like a dozen women doing their various craft projects or whatever, and it's like it like radical. Like I've seen women come in here and get in the matter of like a year, like just completely change their politics to be like much more radical because they reify the community, values. And so
they do go kind of nuts. You were talking earlier about how behind every great man is like a woman who has like an even more deranged and extreme version of his politics. And it also works with friends, I've noticed. Like you can definitely watch somebody go off the deep end and they'll start like I don't know. I know a girl who switched friend groups and it resulted in her like watching Candace Owen videos and just going totally insane, right? Like there was no men involved in this. It was an entirely self-sustained female pipeline that led her to Candace Owens.
Yeah, and so I think this is like the best way is like if you're like a pretty right-wing or right-wing libertarian dude and your opinions are like unpopular in the dating zeitgeist, I'm going to encourage the somewhat dishonest practice of like hiding that like at least a little bit.
I was gonna ask how many dates in do you have to wait before mentioning your politics in your opinion?
Oh, I'm from a different era, like I haven't used a single one of the dating apps that people like. I see that people talk about that on social media and and so on. And I never hid my opinions, but I would say I guess I probably wasn't like blunt about them either. Like there's a way of asking questions or like being vague.
Well, I think there's like fun ways also that you can like say very right-leaning things and very like, because words a lot of times are like a valence indicator more than like
Yes.
a very, especially like you're on a first date, you're having a political conversation for whatever reason. And it's like,
Yeah, I was like, what the
are
fuck
you
are
really
talking
truly
about, man? What sort
examining
of first
like,
date-
are you platonically examining like the truth of political nature in the country, like on a deep level? No, like she's just trying to get an idea of like, do you intrinsically hate women? Like that's what she's really trying to understand. Or like there's an establishment of like a power balance in a relationship that's happening through a medium that is like politics, right? And I think
Well, and the
there's
other
a
thing
ton
is,
of
if you say I do, like I hate women so much, but you're like smiling at her and like making eye contact, like also she'll be like, no, he said he loves women, right? Like it's just like
yeah,
yeah.
there's so many valence hacks that you can do where people will assume you said something totally, and like you could be like, no, 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 I didn't say that. I said this other thing that like you're obviously horrified at. And she's like, no, 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 there's no way he said that. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you'll be right there.
Yeah, I agree with you guys completely. And I think to some extent, I don't know if people still use the phrase like shit test. Like some of this stuff is effectively a shit test. And it's like just literally how do you react to it? And if you are defensive or apologetic, then you failed the test. And if you can, you know, grin through it or respond the right way, then you're going to be fine.
Okay, I'll give you the real opinion and then we'll move off this topic. But like the real reason why people have such a reticence with this idea, and like so many married guys that I know basically say things to the effect of like, you have to keep your wife in the dark for like a super long time and kind of use all this like dark arts on her. And I think the problem is, and maybe this is an incorrect idea, right? But this totally debunks like any idea of like romance and whatever, right? This idea that like, oh, I have to like systemically lie to this woman while I court her such that this illusion of like my neutrality does not exist. I have to like carefully manage her info diet. And like, again, maybe this is true, but it is a really hard pill to swallow, right? I think in a lot of ways, it's a very hard pill to
it's
swallow.
one of those
You're
things
like,
that young men hear and they're like, oh, well, I just don't want anything to do with this.
yeah, it's
Like it makes them
if that's
drop.
what
It makes
marriage
them
is, then I
drop
don't want
out
to
of
be
the
married.
thing. They're like, yeah.
If I have to
like,
be constantly having this like Cold War internally in my household, maybe I just don't want to get married. And I think
This is
that's
also
the big
the-
thing
I
that's
mean,
happened.
No,
also.
I think it clearly ends. I would endorse that, like, yeah, look, especially someone with like radically unpopular opinions, that like I'm not going to have those be the first thing out of my mouth. But if a woman ultimately comes to like me and appreciate me, then she'll like roughly adopt something directionally like my opinions, and that's just to some degree how women work. And so it's like you don't lead with it. You don't lie about it or hide it either. And it's about, getting her to, sort of respect you as the leader of your, relationship or your family or whatever.
There is also this autism that people have where they're like, it's like, oh, it was dishonest the way that he didn't tell me that he thought my hair looked fucking stupid on our first date, right? It's like, like they don't say that, but they would say the political equivalent of it, right? It was dishonest the way that he didn't tell me that he thinks my political candidate is a retard on the first date. And it's like, it's also just sort of like socially normal, right? Like I don't walk around going up to like everybody that I see saying, it's like your shirt's gay, like your shoes look stupid, like your belt is the wrong size, you shop at Walmart or something. Like you just don't have to say these things to everyone you interact with all the time. And I don't know, the line of honesty also, like, it does just increasingly get used to say, like, oh, like, I'm honest. And it's like guy who is just being kind of an asshole to everyone.
Yeah. It's honesty is a fuzzy thing. It's something, I'm raising my kids, and it's like, well, you want them to tell the truth, but like, not always.
Yeah, do the
like,
Elvin thing. Do the Elvin thing, bro. Like, you can sometimes just not address subjects if they're bad, right? Just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also conceptually funny. It's like I forget who said it, but everyone who names themselves after a thing becomes the opposite of the thing in some axis, right? Like OpenAI went from being an open nonprofit, like open source, to like now it's just entirely closed for profit. It's like if you name yourself the Free Society, At some point, you will have a database. At some point, you will have a database of the members that has rules and restrictions for entry.
No, I mean, I think that's a fairly libertarian idea. Look, we have multiple people in the Free State movement who work for Palantir. I don't know. It's like some libertarians don't like that. I have no problem with it. That doesn't mean I like everything or whatever, but like, that they seem like a fine company, from my perspective.
This is one of those things I've never understood, like the libertarian people who get really angry at like Palantir or like Flock or whatever. It's like, dude, like your local policeman might be like an asshole, but the odds that he's like truly fucking going out of his way to like ruin your life the way that the federal government has like done certain things that are incredibly pernicious is just not, like, the odds of this are just incredibly low. And if this is true, like, just tell some young kid to like run for the chief of police or something. But like all these people get mad at like their local police and like trash Flock cameras and call themselves like right libertarians. Like it's just so ineffectual. Like if you
see it as exactly the same type of person who goes up to it's like, let's say I bought something at Walmart, right? And it just didn't work. And I go up to the guy at the return desk and I'm like, "You fat bitch, like you fucked me." Like it's like you're just yelling at the wrong person.
Yeah, I mean my impression of Peter Thiel is like pretty positive. You never like everything about someone, but my impression is like is wholly positive, and that's like my impression of, again, I think there's this weird libertarian argument that I've never really liked. That's like, we'll have liberty by like making the government really inefficient, and like that's not my sense of like how you get anywhere. Like I don't want the government of like a South American or like an African country where there's like a whole bunch of laws, but also they're not real and they're
this is a great point.
Yeah, highly subjectively or whatever, and so. Yeah, Palantir is, they're not like a database company, but they effectively like connect data sources and build custom dashboards and tools, for entities with a lot of data sources. That includes the federal government. Getting mad at Palantir to me is like a bit like getting mad at like, you're getting mad at like MySQL or, whatever. Like there's all kinds of technologies that are used.
It's like Oracle.
Yeah. By the government to be more effective. And this idea that I can get liberty by having the government just be really inefficient, doesn't make sense to me. The type of government that I want is like a very small set of rules, but those rules are enforced, reliably,
very well,
and in a consistent way that people understand.
Well, it's
right?
also
it's not the social media Trojan service thing, where it's like we're leaving enough gray area that we can do individual action on any given person that we find distasteful.
The other problem that libertarians have is that they never consider their ideas within like the larger, broader world. It's like, okay, we're gonna abolish the government, man. And it's like, okay, what happens when like the Chinese Communist Party shows up on like the shores of California? Like, what do you do then, right?
But it's basically just a misunderstanding of like the individual versus social freedom, right? Like you can have very high individual freedom that winds up horseshoeing you back to literally the Stone Ages because you have zero social freedom. Because it's like the basic critique of libertarianism is if you give everybody no laws, then eventually you lose all your freedom because some retard crackhead stabs you in the face.
Well, some other group of people won't give up all their laws, and they will have like a central, like power is centralizing, and centralizing power accumulates is just like the reality of the world and the technology tree. And it's a very like childish understanding of the world where it's like, and I think the reality is most right-leaning libertarians understand this intrinsically, and I think most right-leaning libertarians vote pretty hard Republican at this point, like almost all of them, right? And I think that's why the Libertarian Party became so left-leaning, is because like the right-leaning libertarians were just like, yeah, this is like really stupid, like I can't keep wasting my time voting for this. This is ineffectual. Right. I think so many people would be surprised how many Trump supporters, like Trump is objective. If you look at his policies, he's not like a libertarian guy by any means. But I think you would be really surprised at how many libertarians agree with him because they understand that there's a higher order battle that needs to be fought over who controls the federal government. Right. It's like you have to have the ring of power before you can throw it into, the volcano and destroy it. You need to have it and really have it first. right? Before you throw it away and destroy it. Yeah, dude, I think the New Hampshire stuff is pretty awesome. I'm like a big New England nationalism guy. I love New England. I think right-leaning people should take back New England. I think this idea of like Democratic staffer kids who like want total third world communism and then who post like photos in Martha's Vineyard is like the end of civilization, and these people should be humiliated thoroughly online. Um, is there anything else we should know about New Hampshire, or anything like any fun lore? So you went to this conference and you called them all losers. Was that like the national conference or the New Hampshire conference?
No, that was the National Libertarian Party. This stuff is small, but like the Libertarian Party plays such a small role in the libertarian movement. Again, I think it gets outsized impact on online, and this is why I felt it was important for the New Hampshire Libertarian Party to be controlled by the sort of free state contingent. But like, we play almost no role in state politics. Like, well, we play some. We have increasingly become like this sort of like boogeyman, where we have been able to sort of scare some of the Republicans actually more than the Democrats. Like we can actually bully them to vote a little bit better, or whatever. But everything here is happening through the Republican Party. Like, that is how liberty is happening here in New Hampshire. It's Republicans getting elected, changing the laws, making the state, better in terms of politics. Maybe 2% of free staters are in the New Hampshire Libertarian Party. Most of them are not. So this was a vehicle to serve a larger purpose. I feel like the New Hampshire movement, continues to be ascendant. What's happening here really doesn't appear to be happening anywhere else in America. And I think like something new will ultimately happen. Like, the world needs it. It will happen. I think New Hampshire has a better chance of it being that thing than a lot of other possibilities. But like, something has to happen here. Like, we're in the dark ages when it comes to government. And our current systems are increasingly failing. They're increasingly breaking. The only thing holding us afloat is entrepreneurs and that American spirit of doing things. And that spirit is succeeding despite the government, not because of it. And, what could happen if you actually had that spirit unleashed and unchained, instead of corralled by democracy, I think could be really incredible. And I wake up every day here, with optimism for the future. It feels like things get better here, every day. That's a very psychologically pleasing feeling. I think people who are still listening at this point should just plan a trip and should come for a visit and not try to debunk it or debate it, with their favorite AI or with their Google searches. Like, just come and check it out.
You can't learn by reading shit anymore. It doesn't work. It's been debunked. Right. That whole concept.
We have, I will defend us here as like one of the very few podcasts. We have like incredible retention. Like, if you make it past 25 minutes, almost all of the people actually watch through.
If you make it past 5 minutes. If you make it past 5 minutes, you're gonna be listening.
Yeah, we'll go for like another. We'll go for another like 5-10 minutes, Jeremy, and then we'll let you go so the wife doesn't longhouse you too hard. I think the last thing I really want to hit on is like, I think one thing I hear from you and I hear from like these people in New Hampshire that I really don't hear in a lot of other places. Like, I think the only two politicians that I hear this from on a global stage are Trump and Milei. Is like, there is a vision of winning that is not like a really pathetic form of winning. I think so much political energy on the right, and I think this is one of the things that BAP says, right? I think BAP doesn't really want to be a leader. He more wants to be like this kind of character online. He's very interesting. He's a super smart guy, like very brilliant. I think one of the great points that he makes is that on the right, there is this pathetic loser energy a lot of times. And it's like, you can win more. Like, imagine a world where you went, and there's some people who's like, their craziest fantasy in like their wildest wet dreams is like a world where I am not totally annihilated. And it's like, allow yourself to dream about something slightly more, allow yourself to dream of like a government that not only doesn't fuck with you, but like does do great things, right? And does solve collective action problems and does make it easier for people, young people to live and form families and have jobs and enterprise and whatever. I don't know if you want to close out with anything that crazy, or Lucas, if you want to hit him with a last question before.
No,
Let the
that's
longhoused man go be longhoused.
that's the spirit, precisely. That's also why I think I see people when they look at New Hampshire, they get into this trap of like arguing about, well, maybe this other state, has slightly better tax policy, or it'd be more affordable, here or whatever. And I feel like that completely misses the point because, I would claim that we're the best and we would win these things or whatever, but like the scale of what's possible is so big and the scale of where we are today is so constrained. And to have that vision of these larger, grander possibilities, and also to feel like we're making progress towards them. Look, it's the most psychologically satisfying thing in the world. Like often when we attain our goals, the satisfaction goes away. But if I wake up every day and I'm getting closer to that sort of like transcendent achievement that I want to achieve, I feel really good. I'm making progress every day. I'm getting closer to where I want to be every day. I think this is the closest to sort of psychological happiness, like whatever. It's the best that we can feel is when we're in that kind of space, and I think that's here. I think that where we can go is so much bigger than what everyone is focusing on in a national level or in all these other ways. And come and visit. I'll say it one more time. Come and visit, and we can end here.
See, I'm actually kind of being pilled on this whole thing because I don't really like. I have a couple places.
I think you could get Lucas to come out in like the next month.
I think actually I am like this is why the episode has turned into.
I think Lucas is like the person you want to pitch to.
Dude, where the fuck am I supposed to live, bro? Like, because I don't like any of the places that I've been to recently. And I don't really have a home now, so
I think there's places that you like I think you enjoy SF, you enjoy New York, but like in doses, right? And I think there's something about living all the time in SF or New York or one of these urban centers that is like very
I do think that everyone who lives in San Francisco permanently becomes completely insane and unhinged and
It's
like unmoored from reality in a way that makes them genuinely bizarre to interact with most of the time. And it's like, you get it. Like when I go there and I visit, I feel myself becoming someone who like, if I go and talk to a normal person afterwards, they're horrified by like a lot of the things that I say. Right. And it's like at some point, maybe 3 or 4 months there, it's just like snap, like you've permanently transformed yourself into a San Francisconian and nobody will ever understand you again. So I think that's what Sela worries about if I go there.
Just wait till you
thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming. We'll hang out at some point. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. You can catch Jeremy on Twitter. I'm sure it'll be somewhere in the description or somewhere. He'll be retweeting and shilling the hell out of this episode, I'm sure. Godspeed. Enjoy New Hampshire. Everyone should visit to New Hampshire. We can have a podcast meet up. Lucas and I won't show up. All of you freaks can go alone.
I might show up actually. I don't know. I wouldn't count me out.
We'll do a live show. You guys want to do a show at the live studio?
We could do a live show.
That would actually be fun, epic, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, come out at the same time. We'll do a live show. We'll get like 50 to 100 people in the audience with a live show.
That could be fun.